This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Forever Young though for Japan, who comes up to the outside of Autobahn, goes past by a length. Forever Young drawing away here in the late stages, and it's another Japan domination in the UAE Derby.
Go Maggie Go is holding on to this lead from off the tracks. Paula Queen is down on the inside. Go Maggie Go's got it close to home. It is Go Maggie Go. Paula Queen and off the tracks. Go Maggie Go wins the Gulfstream Park Oaks.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
They're driving toward the wire. It is Smarty Jones by 3. Borrego trying to make one lane move. Pro Prado at the rail. Smarty Jones leading by 2. It is Smarty Jones. One step more to Kentucky and one giant step to $5 million.
And Barbaro struts his stuff. It is Barbaro to the final furlong. He is a neck in front of Sharp Humor, who will not go away. Barbaro only ahead in front. Sharp Humor runs his heart out at the rail. Sun River a closing third. Barbaro, Sharp Humor. Barbaro's got him. Barbaro wins.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, welcoming you to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum. It is all presented by TwinSpires and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. As always, you are listening on Sirius 162, XM 207, along with our terrestrial partners, and live streaming worldwide on our website, horseracingradio.net. And don't forget, too, if you miss any portion of today's show or you just want to catch up on any of your favorite HRN shows, we make it really, really easy for you to do that. They're available via podcast after the live airing on our website. And, of course, you can listen on your favorite podcast platform. So wherever you get your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and follow along with us here on HRRN. You know, at this time, 1 year ago, we were contemplating the unimaginable possibility of Hall of Fame trainer Todd Pletcher not being part of the Kentucky Derby. And for most trainers, it would be considered blasphemy to use the word unimaginable when you're referring to them not having a starter in the Kentucky Derby because of how incredibly difficult it is to be among racing's most elite 3-year-olds on the first Saturday in May. But then again, Todd Pletcher is not most trainers. Last year, that remarkable streak of 21 consecutive years with a Kentucky Derby starter came to an end. And think about this. In 18 of those 21 years, Pletcher had more than one horse in the Derby starting gate. And in 11 of those 18, he was represented by 3 or more starters. 18,500 foals. Let me put that into perspective for you here. 18,500 foals were part of the 2023 foal crop. Only 20 will have the opportunity to line up for the Run for the Roses in 5 weeks. You want the math? That's 0.1081%. You like your chances? 11 of 18 years. In that 21-year streak, Todd Pletcher had 3 or more starters in the Derby starting gate. So in this case, the word unimaginable might not be strong enough when referring to the mere notion that we were kicking around at this time last year that we would have a Kentucky Derby without Todd Pletcher. Well, guess what? It happened. And sitting here today, just 5 weeks away from the Run for the Roses, it's obvious Todd never wanted to experience that feeling again. I'll put it to you in sports terms. It's like an athlete or a coach who falls short of their goals. Only one team is ever going to be happy at the end of any season in any sport. Did you hear Hall of Fame basketball coach Tom Izzo last night after his Michigan State Spartans were knocked out of the NCAA tournament? When he was asked about his future in the post-game press conference, he quickly shut down any talk of him walking away, retiring. He said, "I've still got some things to accomplish. I said a couple years ago I'd find a way to get back there to the national championship. We knocked on the door twice. We haven't gotten back. We'll get back." His tone when giving that quote was one of frustration, dejection, and unwavering determination, which is what makes all great coaches, all great athletes great. They hate to lose. And you could tell Tom Izzo, underneath the surface there, was seething because he got beat. That's what makes all great coaches, all great athletes, all great horse trainers for that matter. Jockeys are athletes. That's what makes them great. They hate to lose. And I guarantee you, I'll bet you any amount of money, that's the same attitude that Todd Pletcher brought into this year's Road to the Kentucky Derby. It just ticked him off. Whether he says it publicly or not, I'm sure it didn't sit well that he had to sit there and watch the Kentucky Derby without being part of it after 21 consecutive years. And now here he is today, nearly major player in the Florida Derby, Renegade, favorite, horse to beat in the Arkansas Derby, class president. We'll see him next week in the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland. You might see Todd Pletcher with 3 more horses this year. Think about that. Just a remarkable run. And he looks to start a new streak, and that new streak begins today with punching his ticket into the big dance with those 3 horses, or 2 of those horses, and then 1 next week that I just mentioned. You're going to hear from Todd Pletcher, 9:20 Eastern. He's going to talk about each of those horses, also going to talk about a few other things with me as well. And I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about that Gulfstream Park program, the Oaklawn Park program, and even Dubai. Not going to, the Dubai World Cup's taking place today, by the way. 12:45 Eastern is the post. We'll get to that later in the program. But you're going to hear from Brian Nadeau, who does a great job handicapping down at Gulfstream Park. He'll join me later in the show right around 9:40 Eastern time. Going to look ahead to the Bluegrass Stakes and that Keeneland meet. The spring meet begins next Friday. I'll do that with Jim Goodman from Keeneland, always a very popular guest here on the show. And then I mentioned Dubai. You're going to hear from jockey Florent Geroux, who is aboard Hit Show in the Dubai World Cup. He's also aboard Nakatomi in the Golden Shaheen. He's going to talk about those 2 races. He was joined by Laura King of the Dubai Racing Club earlier this week, and they talked about coming back there as the defending champion, and is he better this year than he was last year? You'll hear all of that coming up in a few minutes. Scott Blasi talked about Magnitude, who tries to knock off Hit Show, and then Jose D'Angelo, Breeders' Cup Sprint winner Bent Tornado, going in the Golden Shaheen in Dubai in just a little bit. And the post time for the Shaheen, by the way, 10:55 Eastern time, so that'll go right before I wrap things up at 11 o'clock. And then the World Cup at 12:45. So we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to talk about all of the big storylines here in Thoroughbred Racing for you this morning. And we're also going to bring you this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question, which Lee Delapina has for you right now.
Thank you, Mike. This week's Impossible Trivia question is brought to you by Mojo Racing Partners, celebrating their 20th anniversary this April. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com. What Florida Derby winner went on to become the first in history to be awarded a Kentucky Derby victory due to the disqualification of the original winner? No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
Yeah, get your mojo working. The answer comes your way right around 10:55 Eastern time. Poll question for you this morning. Which race is more likely to give us this year's Kentucky Derby winner? The Florida Derby or the Arkansas Derby? Which of those 2 more likely to give us this year's Kentucky Derby winner? You can go to @HRRN on X to cast your vote. You can do that on our Facebook page, Horse Racing Radio Network. Or if you don't do social media, look, I truly get it. Email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. And you can cast your vote that way. Let me know which race more likely to give us this year's Kentucky Derby winner. And as so many of you, I'm going to point this out, by the way, because I'm kind of proud of this. As so many of you know who follow me on social media, on X, @HRN Barron, you'll know I'm probably one of the most boring follows of all time because I rarely tweet, and then when I do tweet, it's always about the show, right? To let you know who's coming up on the show. I'm very informative with my tweets. That's it. I don't tweet about a lot of different topics and issues and things like that. The only other thing I might tweet about is the Pittsburgh Steelers once in a while, and that's usually a retweet of something that's the Steelers send out. So I'm not one of those guys that you're going to say, Barron, you're the greatest social media follow of all time. But this past week, I did comment on some of the recent defections, the retirements that we're seeing among the trainer side of things in racing. Eddie Plesa Jr., Martin Drexler, Roger Atfield. What a week. That was my post. 6.1 thousand views. I never get 6.1 thousand views on anything. I'm pretty proud of that. I think, what do they call that? Breaking Twitter? Breaking X? I don't know. I have no idea. But I just wanted to point that out. I thought that was cool. But you should follow at HRRN. That's where you're going to get all the information you're looking for when it comes to this show and all the shows we bring your way. Shameless plug for our social media page. And you should go there right now to cast your vote on the poll question. All right, all kinds of things to get to. A big surprise for you when I come back from this first break. I've been holding this one back. When I come back, reunited with my dear friend, my longtime host on the program, and one hell of a handicapper, the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld. He is with me live here on the program next. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Coolmore Stallion Corniche, a $1.5 million OBS April sale topper by Quality Road and a two-time Grade 1 winner.
But it's Corniche. He's just too good. Corniche wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Voted champion 2-year-old male following his win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, it's no surprise his 72 yearlings sold for an average of over $170,000, with a top-price colt of $725,000 and a top-price filly of $525,000. Corniche standing for only $15,000 at Coolmore's Ashford Stud.
Fans, come out today to Santa Anita for some great racing. We have 9 races with our first post at 1 p.m. The best way to bet those 9 races is with our wagering menu that helps you make money with our low takeout bets. Terrific low wagers today include 2 pick 4s, 2 pick 5s, a $3 late pick 3, the ever popular coast to coast pick 5, and the $5 late daddy double. And of course, tremendous racing is right around the corner as we present the Santa Anita Derby on April 4th. That is Easter weekend, and we have a plethora of events surrounding that big day, like the front runner buffet, a barbecue in the Loge box seats, a 5K run, a beer festival, a spring carnival, and so much more. You can get all the details, and you can purchase advance tickets over at santanita.com. My best bet today comes in race number 9. I love number 9, Jimmy Wingfield. He is impeccably bred and has some scintillating works leading up to his debut. End the day with the winner. Santa Anita, it's your best bet for world-class entertainment and racing on Easter weekend.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Moving up on the outside and challenging is Chief Wallaby. Dropping back is Rocky's Balboa. They reach the first finish line, top of the stretch mark. On the outside, Chief Wallaby lays down the challenge to Solitude Dude. Commandment with a big opening toward the rail. The Red Sea parts for Commandment, and he's charging after Chief Wallaby to the first finish line. Commandment on the inside, Chief Wallaby to the outside. Commandment with the momentum. Chief Wallaby makes him earn it. Commandment, Chief Wallaby. Commandment wins the Fountain of Youth. It's Commandment for the money narrowly over Chief Wallaby second, Solitude Dude third, then Bravaro and fifth for the high five, Napoleon Solo, 143-1.
Pete Aiello with the call. We get that great rematch this afternoon between Commandment and Chief Wallaby. Does Bill Mott get back to the Kentucky Derby with Chief Wallaby? Can he win it 2 years in a row? Wouldn't that be something, huh? Well, Commandment and Brad Cox trying to get back there, too, and they're pretty good. And then you throw in Nearly from the barn of Todd Pletcher, and you got the making for one heck of a Florida Derby coming up this afternoon. Of course, the Arkansas Derby taking place in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and that's going to be fantastic, too. You know, I was referring to all of the trainers who have called it quits over the course of the past week. Eddie Plesa Jr., Martin Drexler, Roger Atfield, the dual Hall of Famer. Well, one trainer who has not called it quits is Jude Feld, the legendary former trainer Jude Feld, who is with me now here on the Equine Forum. JT, good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah, it sounds good to be able to say that again, my friend. Nice to have you back with me. You know, talking about this weekend, You obviously, the Pontiff of the Pick 4, have handicapped all the Gulfstream races, and we're going to talk about the late Pick 4, which ends with the Florida Derby here today. But what a weekend of thoroughbred racing, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. The Derby picture is, intense, and there's a lot of horses that have a chance, and everybody's trying to position themselves the best they can, and it's a great time of year, really.
Put into perspective what I was talking about in the opening segment of the show when I said Todd Pletcher started a horse in the Derby 21 consecutive years. You've done this job. You know how difficult this job is just to get a horse to the starting gate and win their maiden race. He got a horse into the Kentucky Derby 21 straight years.
Oh, yeah, the guy's amazeballs. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous when you think about it. The number of horses that he's trained that actually were of that caliber. I really never had anything of that caliber.
Right.
I mean, I won like 24 stakes and 7 graded races. I had a great career. I loved every minute of it, and it was the most fun I ever had in my life, that 20 years that I trained horses.
You were telling me a story last night about Bill Shoemaker's first win as a trainer. You were part of that race.
Yeah, I was. I was second, as you might imagine. I gave bad instructions to my rider, and he followed them, which never happens, right? And
unfortunately, he followed them this time.
Gary Stevens was on Bill's horse and came up the rail, which was the absolute worst part of the turf course at Louisiana Downs, and beat us like a nostril. And it's the only time in my life that I ever ran a horse where my, how they say your leg goes out from under you. My right leg collapsed. I had to grab a hold of a rail that was on a little downslope, some stairs, because I almost fell over because I got so excited.
Yeah.
It's the only time in my life. I mean, I really thought I was going to win that race. It was a crazy race. The Fall Harvest Handicap, there were like 7 Grade 1 winners in the race, and here I am bringing a 3-year-old filly, to this race. But she was great going a mile and 3/8, mile and a half, and I had full confidence in her. She ran a great race, but, we got beat. But the kicker was, we finished second. We got $40,000 for second, and we got our check. And then Shoemaker comes to my office a couple of weeks later, and he goes, "Did you get paid from Louisiana Downs?" I said, "Oh yeah, the check's already deposited and cleared." And he goes, "We still haven't gotten our check yet." They didn't have enough money in the purse account to pay the winner, so that was kind of funny. I called my client, Bob Marino, and I said, we were lucky we were second. We got the cash.
Yeah. The only time you've ever been ahead of Bill Shoemaker in any category, right?
Any category, yeah.
Yeah, you'll take that. Listen, let's talk about this Pick 4 here today at Gulfstream Park. It ends with the Florida Derby. There are 14 races on this Florida Derby program. 6:42 Eastern is post time for what is the Keeneland Florida Derby. Our friends at Hillendale, great sponsors of this show and, of course, of the racing at Gulfstream today. Race 11 kicks off that late Pick 4, which will wrap up with the Florida Derby. And that's the Army Mule Stakes with a purse of $175K, 7/8 of a mile, 7 furlongs on the main track. And we're only going to talk about these 4, Jude, because we want people to head over to PopeJude.com and to download your sheet for today, which has all of the other races on it. But I want to talk to you about this Pick 4. So tell me about the Army Mule.
Well, Army Mule, stands over at Hillendale, and he's a very good sire. This is an excellent race. I'm kind of stuck on Pentathlon, Shug McGahee's horse, to steal a phrase from our colleague Sean. I'm kind of a Shug sucker.
You love Shug.
Yeah, I love Shug. Shug's a really great trainer. He's amazing. He's so old school. You'll notice back on February 14th at Payson Park, the day before he won at Tampa on the 15th, he blew him out 3/8 and 36-4. In today's day and age, trainers don't really blow horses out the day before a race, but Shug's old enough to know that actually works sometimes. And sometimes you go 3/8, sometimes you go quarter, whatever, but it just really opens the horse's lungs up and gets them fired up to go. And Pentathlon just ran a beautiful race, basically looped the field last time. Super impressive, got a great number. I think he looks super tough in here today.
When you start looking at, now here's Pentathlon 8-1 on the morning line. When you start looking at structuring your pick 4 tickets, are you purposely looking to beat favorites when you sit down to handicap these races?
Well, it's pretty much every race because I don't like to bet on anything. I learned this from Mr. Ramsey. I don't take anything below 5-2. So if a horse starts getting below that, I'm out. I cancel more tickets than I bet sometimes.
Really?
If it's chalky card or whatever, it's not for me. I like to have a horse that has a little bit of substance. I want to be able to get paid when I win, so I just don't bet on the shorter priced horses. But in a pick 4, of course, you have to use those horses sometimes because you're trying to get all 4 winners. So you don't want to leave out some 8-5 shot and have some $70 horse win, and the pick 4 pays thousands of dollars, and you're barking up the wrong tree.
So are you singling Pentathlon in that Army Mule Stakes, or are you going to spread out a little bit?
I'm going to use Scotland. He looks good to me. Now, he didn't run so hot last time, but he's coming off 2-mile races. He's maybe better going shorter. His races going 7 furlongs have been good. He's got 2 wins, 3 seconds, and 2/3 in 8 starts. So that's 7 out of 8 in the money going 7 furlongs. I think he's going to rebound today for Bill Mott. And I was looking at a horse called Back 'em Up that from the Bobby DeBona barn. He didn't run so hot last time either, but he was stuck down on the rail. He's got some speed, and I think he has a chance. He's maybe a little cheap, but I think he's an okay horse. So I was looking at those 3. And there's another horse, Macho Music, number 9, Javier Cassiano riding him, and Javier's won this horse a couple times, so I think he might be an interesting horse to use. But it's probably I thought maybe the toughest race of the sequence.
Yeah, okay. That Back 'em Up, you say maybe a little cheap. He was second in the Grade 3 Fred Hooper behind Knightsbridge, so nothing cheap about that effort. If he can run back to that, who knows? He's 12-1 on the morning line. Maybe you get some value there.
Yeah, well, he's been on the improve. They claimed him for 25 last October, and he's gotten better and better, so I think he's on the rise. And Bobby DeBona is one of my sneaky trainers. I like the way he does things. He's usually pretty cagey.
How about race number 12? That's the second leg of the pick 4, the Sand Springs 175K. This one on the grass at 1 mile and 1/16.
Yeah, I like number 3, Sweet Rebecca. She's a really nice mare, American Pharaoh, out of a Discreet Cat mare. She won her last start. Brendan Walsh had this filly, and then for some reason they switched her over to Chad Brown, and Chad won a couple of races with her, but now she's back with Brendan Walsh, and Brendan's such a good trainer. He's a great filly trainer. I think this filly's coming into the race on a good note, and she also has my best turf figure in the field. So I think she'll be pretty salty today.
Okay, here's a situation where she is 5-2 on the morning line. So you put your bets in, you take Sweet Rebecca at 5-2 on the morning line. Let's say she drops down to, 9-5. Do you still stick with this pick 4 ticket, or do you say, okay, I'll wait and play another day?
Oh no, I'll definitely play a pick 4 with her.
Okay, so she's a single.
She's not necessarily a single. There's some other horses that I'm looking at. Candy Quest, Mark Cassie's filly. She's a nice filly. She got a great number. It was at Kentucky Downs, and that's a little salty sometimes. The Kentucky Downs numbers, it's a very unique course, and some horses freak there, and other horses can't stand it. But it's a cool place to go racing. If you ever have a chance, spend a day at Kentucky Downs. It's well worth your time. But Candy Quest, I think she's an interesting horse to play. And then number 9, Ashima. She's
20-1.
Yeah, she's been on a little roll. I mean, she's won 3 out of her last 4 starts, and she's 20-1. That seems crazy to me. Jorge Ruiz rides her and taking over for Irad. Maybe that's, or is it Jose? She's taking over for Jose Ortiz.
Mm-hmm.
But she's got some ability, and she's going to be a big number. So I'll throw her in and hope she's feeling lucky today.
All right, so Ashima, the long shot play at 20-1, and Coupler with a couple of the other horses in here who are likely favorites in that race. Number 12, race 13, the race preceding the Florida Derby, is the Grade 3 Pan American. These races at 1.5 miles on the turf are always so much fun, and it takes such a special horse to excel at these 1.5 mile races on the grass, and we've got some pretty good ones in here too.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. My dad had a book in his library, Making Money on the Races, that was printed like in the 1940s, and I'm sorry I can't remember the author's name, but it had a marathon system in this book, and I've kind of upgraded that system to modern day racing, and I use it a lot in marathon races, and the figures are really, really good. A lot of times the exotics pay lots of money. So the horse with the best rating is Padiddle. Now, Padiddle, for some reason I like Padiddle.
You just like his name.
I like his name, but he runs hard every time without winning. He hasn't won a race in a month of Sundays, but he's.
But we're going to use him.
We're going to use him. I'm probably going to bet him straight too, because he's going to be a number. He's always like 12, 15, 20-1. But one of these days he's going to win, and he's going to pay a pot full. But he's my top selection. And my second choice is the 8, Echo Lane. Echo Lane is much more consistent. He's actually won 8 races in 27 starts. So he's kind of the anti-Padiddle. He likes to win. So I like those two. And then I'm also going to use the 6, Dashman, who is maybe not etched in stone marathoner, but he can get the distance. He won the McKnight, and he's by Oscar Performance, who's a stallion that I really, really like a lot. He wins a lot of races. And then my longest shot is Soul Away, the 10. This horse, is kind of rounding to form, only been here a little while from Europe, and I think the horse definitely has a shot. He's a 4-year-old, so he may be a little bit up against it, maturity-wise, but he's got Galileo in his pedigree and Kingman, so you could do worse than that. I think he's 20-1 on the line.
And are you staying away from morning line favorite Far Bridge, and he's the defending champion in this race? Are you staying away from him simply because of the price?
Oh, no. I definitely am going to use Far Bridge. I mean, he doesn't have to win, but he could win. To me, this is a spread race. You kind of have to.
Yeah, we just mentioned half the field, 5 out of 10.
Yeah, well, that's always. It's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind singling horses. Sometimes played a sheet last week, singled the last race, and the horse won for fun. I don't mind that. I'm not a guy that likes to insure my bets or whatever. I just bet what I like, and if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose.
I guess if you do spread and you use 5 horses in this race, again, coming back to your pick 4 strategy, you're just really hoping Far Bridge isn't the one that wins it, right?
Right.
You go deep and then you get the favorite.
Yeah, I'm hoping Padiddle wins it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I know he's going to pay good, and most people aren't going to use him. So those are the ones you want. You want the ones where everybody else is on a shorter price horse and you're not.
All right, so now that brings us to the final leg of the late pick 4 at Gulfstream. That is the final race of the day, race 14, the Keeneland Florida Derby. It's all presented by Hillendale Farms at Alapa. 1 1/8 on the main track, 6:42 Eastern, the post. Win and you're in for the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, this is a really good race, and there's 2 horses in here that I think really maybe stand out over the rest of the field. First of all, number 4, Commandment. You don't need to be a genius to come up with this horse. He ran a fantastic Brisnet speed figure last time out. Every number has improved in his 4-race career. He went 84, 88, 98, and 103. So, I mean, he's on the rise. He's a very good horse. He's won his last 3 straight. Flavian Pratt's on him for Brad Cox. You could do way worse than him. And then Nearly from Todd Pletcher's barn, same kind of deal. 66, 91, 97, 99. I mean, 3 straight 90s on the way up. You know, he's got some nice works in between starts. Johnny V, can't do better than that. He certainly has a huge chance.
Yeah, he's won his last 3 starts, of course, by a combined 20 lengths. That's why he's among the contenders in this race here today. But this is another step up for him.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, all these horses are learning the ropes still and you know, trying to get to their best race by Derby Day. Hopefully they don't peak in here and then, you know, fall apart on Derby Day, which happens sometimes.
So you feel comfortable, like, ending the pick 4 with just Commandment and Nearly?
I'm going to use a Chief Wallaby.
Yeah.
Now, Chief Wallaby's a horse that I'm not in love with, but I'm afraid of. Chief Wallaby won first time out, and then Bill Mott ran him in the Fountain of Youth, and he really didn't want to run him in there, but he felt like he had to get some points and get him on the Derby trail. He has a lot of confidence in this horse, Bill Mott, but it's so un-Mott-like to be pressing. You know, Bill Mutt's usually like, take your time. I mean, the guy skipped the Preakness after winning the Derby.
Yeah.
So you know he's not a nervous guy. But with this horse, he has some added pressure on him to do well. So, yeah, I'm going to use him out of respect for the trainer and the fact that he's got a pattern in mind. But he's not my favorite horse, but I think he must be respected.
Yeah. The Tampa Bay Derby winner, the Puma, also among the contenders in this race. And I found this very interesting. Gulfstream sent out a press release earlier this week citing the fact that trainer Gustavo Delgado, who, of course, won the Kentucky Derby with Mage back in 2023, he's had second-itis in the Florida Derby. He's had to settle for second with Majesto in 2016, Bodie Express in 2019, and then Mage in 2023. And we know that worked out okay, but he's been that guy that just has been the runner-up in this race and unable to break through. Maybe the Puma today?
Well, I'm not really a Puma fan. He sometimes has a hard time changing leads and stuff, and I don't know about the Puma. I think he's achieving above his pay grade.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he absolutely could win. I mean, if somebody said, "Oh, Puma won the Florida Derby," I wouldn't fall over dead.
Right.
You know.
Well, we hope not.
Yeah. Of course we hope not.
We hope not.
But yeah, it wouldn't be a terrible shocker, but he's not a horse that's really on my Derby watch. You know.
Well, we've gone through that late pick 4, and again, Pope Jude, his sheets, JT, every single big race day, you put these sheets out. PopeJude.com is the website. You do it a little differently, though. Folks can go get the sheet, and they can look at the early portion of the card before those last 4 races we just talked about. But your sheet isn't necessarily saying bet this horse, bet this horse, bet this horse. You kind of do it a little differently.
Yeah, well, I want people to look at the prices. And, I mean, to me, betting on horses is all about getting a good price. And, you know, so I put the horses down pretty loosely in the order that I like them, but it doesn't mean that's who I'm gonna necessarily bet the top horse. I may go down to the second or third. I mean, sometimes you're sitting there, and it's nice when you ride it out. I find for myself, just for my own handicapping, it gives you clarity of thought when you analyze it and you have to type it up, and then you're going, this horse is really good, and he's like 8 or 9 to 1, and the favorite looks good. He might be 5 to 2 or 3 to 1 or something, but I would rather have the 8 to 1. And if you feel like they have an equal chance, take the better price, obviously.
Yeah, JT, that was fun, man, and enjoy the day, and and good luck with those 4 races and all the races.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a really nice card, a lot of good racing at Gulfstream. The weather's supposed to be nice, so we have a lot to be thankful for there.
And remember, you can bet all of those races we just talked about, and should be, with TwinSpires. Okay, time now for your Legends of the Turf and a short commercial break. When I come back, I'll turn our attention to Dubai. You're going to hear from jockey Florent Geroux talking about Hit Show and Nakatomi. You're going to hear from Scott Blasi talking about Magnitude, and Jose D'Angelo talking about Breeders' Cup Sprint winner Bent Tornado. That's all in the upcoming segment. Stay with me. Time now for your Legends of the Turf.
This is the story of a thoroughbred who outdid his sire and then some in winning the Belmont Stakes, and in so doing wrapped up racing's Triple Crown in the same year the Boston Red Sox won the American League pennant with the likes of the Splendid Splinter and the Little Professor, Ted Williams, and Dominic DiMaggio, for those of you among the uninitiated. Even most wary, hard-bitten skeptics of this particular thoroughbred had to finally admit that there was nothing in sight to give him a tussle after a relatively easy win in the Belmont Stakes to nail down the final leg of the Triple Crown, only the 7th horse in its revered history to have done so. The Belmont, run on Saturday, June 1st of that year, removed the last obstacle to his complete domination of his age division. He won the 12-furlong affair with ease under a supremely confident ride by Warren Mertens, and if there were any doubts or shreds of excuse by his opponents, the arguability of them dissipated like an early morning fog in the glowing sun. This was some kind of racehorse indeed. You know, in racing, nothing surprises. The 3-year-old campaign of the horse nicknamed the Clubfoot Comet was indeed poignantly illustrative of that axiom. He had been accorded not the slightest consideration by the supposedly in-the-knowers in regard to his chances in the Derby. But he cantered off to a virtually uncontested 8th-length score in an eye-popping performance. 1 week later, he'd overcome some bad racing luck and some questionable handling as well, and coming home a winner in a run for the Black-Eyed Susans, the Preakness, by a bare neck. The surprising thing was that his performance in the latter event had been so singularly unimpressive to many, he was regarded only moderately at best as a candidate to culminate his campaign by winning the Belmont. Well, all he did was dispel any last vestiges of dubiousness by racing to a victory that, in its own way, was even more decisive than his Derby score. Old-timers and youthful aficionados alike now realized, sit up and take notice time for this horse. If this great thoroughbred had any shortcoming, it was that aesthetically he was nondescript at best. Many often said the best thing about him was the caliber of his competition. That was as blatantly demeaning as tell a young lady she has as much class as a telephone pole. He never looked pretty. He was blue-collar, lunch-pail, punch-the-clock type who knew what he had to do, and he did it. He wasn't the object of adulation and excitement because of his appearance. No, indeed. That came as a result of his ability to do what he was born to do, run. And run he could. Oh, yes, his competitors were not noteworthy, to be sure, not because they actually were, but rather because he made them look that way by his ability. His sire, Bold Venture, bowed a tendon after the Preakness and could not win the final leg of the Triple Crown, although he was as game as a thoroughbred could be. This horse, with a slight disfigurement in one of his forelegs, had no trouble, other than the aforementioned problems in the Preakness, in nailing down each of racing's jewels of the Triple Crown. His sire, Bold Venture, had won a marvelous Derby in closing from 11th place to whip Brevity, and then had barely outlasted Granville to win the Preakness. Although there may not have been any Brevities or Granvilles to challenge our subject for this piece, there can be absolutely no denying he outdid his illustrious sire and joined Sir Barton, Gallant Fox, Omaha, War Admiral, Whirlaway, and Count Fleet as members of a very select company, Triple Crown winners. That marvelous thoroughbred who went on to become an outstanding handicap horse was none other than Assault, affectionately named the Clubfoot Comet.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
Bull by the Horns and Steel Imperium. They get acquainted at the 16th. Bull by the Horns, Steel Imperium along the inside. Bull by the Horns and John Velasquez win the Rushaway Stakes. Last to first.
Bull by the Horns, the son of Darley Stallion Essential Quality, scored in the Rushaway Stakes at Turfway last weekend, giving his sire the stakes exacta, with his son Steel Imperium finishing second. And that makes Bull by the Horns your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Essential Quality, the current leading second crop sire by both earnings and stakes winners, with runners that also include Grade 1 Florida Derby bound the Puma. Learn more about Essential Quality and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And Ushba Tesoro from back in the field tries to make impressions as they swing in the Dubai World Cup. And it is Mixto who goes up to challenge Walk of Stars. Forever Young has a mighty task ahead of him. Wilson Tesoro goes with him in third and fourth. Hit Show running on from the back, but it's Mixto who hits the lead here with 150 metres left to go. Mixto for Doug O'Neill and Frankie Dettori. Hit Show out, but it's all too late. Look at Hit Show right over the top. Hit Show for Florent Geroux and Brad Cox in the Dubai World Cup. Wins in spectacular fashion. Mixto second over. Third Forever Young. Fourth Il Miracolo from Walk of Stars.
Well, in just over 3 hours, we will find out if Hit Show can defend his title in the Dubai World Cup. That was a spectacular night last year. Will he do it again? We will find out. You're going to hear from his jockey, Florent Geroux, coming up here in just a moment, along with Scott Blasi and Jose D'Angelo. They are all in Dubai looking to capture more crowns, if you will, coming up in just a little bit. Going to get back to the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby conversation later in the program, too. You're going to hear from Todd Pletcher at 9:20, Brian Nadeau, the handicapper at Gulfstream Park, coming up 9:40. That's all part of a loaded second hour of the show, which kicks off, by the way, with Jim Goodman, who is our Kentucky-bred conversation this week. Jim with Keeneland. We're going to look ahead to some of the wagering opportunities coming up at Keeneland during their spring meet, which opens on Friday, and we'll take a look at some of the other storylines associated with this year's meet and the remodeled Keeneland Racecourse. It's not your daddy's Keeneland anymore, and they've done a wonderful job, and can't wait to talk to Jim about that to kick off hour two. So we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to Florent Geroux as well, but first it is time for this month's Kentucky Bred Update, and I remind you, it pays to race and breed in the Bluegrass. At the upcoming Churchill Downs Spring Meet, 50 stakes races, cumulatively worth a record $27.8 million, are scheduled to be run, which covers 44 race dates between April 25th and June 28th, highlighted, of course, by the $5 million Kentucky Derby on May 2nd and the $1.5 million Kentucky Oaks on May 1st. The Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund awards $50,000 to the breeder of a registered Kentucky bred winner of the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. That's a nice little check. And building on a streak of unprecedented success for the second year in a row, a record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the KTBIF program last year for racing in 2025. All told, KTBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Purses in 2025 hit an all-time high of more than $234 million in 2025, and Kentucky remains one of the leading racing jurisdictions, averaging a near record-high purse per race of more than $112,000 and an average field size of 8.9 in 2024. Make sure your horse is KTDF and KTBIF eligible to secure your share of lucrative awards worldwide. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com or register KBIF.com. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win with Kentucky Breds. Well, the Dubai Racing Club was kind enough to send out various interviews which they conducted with Dubai World Cup Day participants throughout the week. And Laura King had a chance to catch up with jockey Florent Geroux earlier this week. He started by talking about Hit Show and then focused on Nakatomi in the Golden Shaheen.
Well, wonderful to have you here nice and early, Florent, and take us back to last year. What was it like winning the Dubai World Cup?
Well, it was surreal, it was an amazing feeling, and the horse showed up and he was game, so it was a very exciting race.
At what point in the race did you think, I've got this?
I would say probably the last 100 meters. I was trying to wave my way to traffic, and the horse was coming up strong. But I didn't know if I was able to catch, the horses in front, especially Mixto, but I was able to get him pretty easily at the end.
And your CV's amazing. You've won a lot of big races. Where did it rank among your big achievements?
Well, definitely near the top. It's a massive race, not only here in Dubai, but worldwide. Everyone in horse racing are watching, that day, and especially that race. So definitely, very high on top.
And how do you think he's doing coming into this race? Because he's had a nice prep.
Yeah, he did good. Yeah, I just won on him, a few weeks ago down in New Orleans at the Fairgrounds. He won nicely. It was a good race, and the margin was not, big, but he got the job done. But he's not the horse who's very flashy, who likes to win by big margin anyway. But no, it looked like he's coming out, of the race in good shape. I think he mature, from last year. I would say he looks a little bit stronger to me, and we'll see how it goes. But we know he likes this track, and like the travel went very well, and so far so good.
And you're taking on Forever Young again, but you beat him last year, so.
Yeah, no big deal. No, I mean, listen, Forever Young is going to be very tough to beat. He's a great horse. He's definitely one of the best horses in the world, and it's nice for him to be in the race. But anything can happen. Last year, we got him, so who knows? It might happen again this year.
Absolutely, it might. And you're also on Nakatomi. He's trying to win the Shaheen at the third time. He's gone well in the race before. A nice ride.
Yeah, no, it's a good ride. This horse, Nakatomi always try hard. Wesley's done a tremendous job with him. Keeping him, for that long at the top level. It's very hard to do. And look like he seems to like Dubai. He ran great. He ran second last year, ran third the year before. So we know he likes this track. So it's always a plus.
Florent Geroux, and again, the Dubai World Cup coming up 12:45. He talked about the Golden Shaheen as well, which is coming up in just a little while. Post time for the Golden Shaheen is set for 10:55 Eastern Time. So right before we go off the air, you'll get a chance to find out who wins the Golden Shaheen. Not sure if we'll have that result before we wrap things up at 11 o'clock, but it's a really good race with Nakatomi, who is trying to capture the race for the first time. He's making his third appearance in that Golden Shaheen. He was third in 2024, second last year. Maybe he finds himself in the winner's circle here. He's moving in the right direction anyway. You're going to hear from Jose D'Angelo, who is going to take on Nakatomi with his Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, Ben Tornado. You'll hear from him in just a moment, too. And then Hit Show. Here's Hit Show defending his title in the Dubai World Cup, doing it a little differently than what he did last year. You heard Florent reference his last race and that win in the mine shaft. Last year, Brad Cox, if you recall, sent Hit Show out to Santa Anita for the big cap. And he was beaten. He was third. And then came back and won the Dubai World Cup in his next start. So this year he enters off of a win at the Fairgrounds. And he's certainly a contender. But, boy, you got to take on Forever Young. And he looks like every part of the best racehorse in the world right now. All due respect to Sovereignty. We haven't seen him yet as a 4-year-old. And boy, would it be great to see those two lock horns in the Breeders' Cup Classic later this season. But I think Forever Young right now has stamped himself as the best racehorse in training right now in the world. And he's going to try to prove it again coming up at 12:45 Eastern. Should be one heck of a horse race. Magnitude is in that race, too, for Steve Asmussen. And his longtime assistant, Scott Blasi, had a chance to talk to Laura about his chances.
So Scott Blasi here with Magnitude. This is a really exciting horse, isn't he? He's an up-and-comer, would you say?
We're very excited about him. He's a horse that we think's improved from his 3-year-old year to his 4-year-old year, which is what you want to see. His prep back in the Razorback was excellent, and it's the same thing we did with Gunrunner coming over here. So, hopefully we get a big effort out of him. We love how he's trained here. His breeze was very nice. He got over the surface really well. And love how he came down with the work and stood him in the gate this morning. He seems relaxed and confident, and he's got a big job ahead of him on Saturday, and it's a very good field, and hopefully we get the results we want.
And why did you and Steve and the owners target this race? Why Dubai for him?
Well, originally we had targeted Saudi, and then we're hoping to run well there and just come over. But he spiked a little temp the morning before he was supposed to ship, so obviously couldn't ship him with his best interest in mind, so we skipped that and went to plan B and ran him in the prep at Oaklawn. And once he ran so well there, we decided that we'd come over and try this.
And you've trained so many great horses over the years. Does this horse give you any sort of reminders of some of the greats? Has he got that talent?
I think how he's developed and how he seems to have gotten faster as he's gotten older, reminds me of Curlin and Gunrunner and horses like that. So, obviously we won the World Cup here in 2008 with Curlin. We're second with Gunrunner, third with Midnight Bourbon. So we've had some great experiences over here, and we feel like this horse is hopefully in the same caliber as those horses. Those are big shoes to fill, obviously, but we're excited about him.
And when you look back at your career, does the win with Curlin stack up quite highly as one of your highlights, would you say?
I think it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in racing, as far as, came over here, prepped him over here, spent 6 weeks here. It was, like nothing I've ever done before, and I think, what a stallion he's become, him and Gunrunner, and we're just very fortunate to be a part of, two amazing horses like that.
I mean, Gunrunner must be the best horse ever to be beaten in a Dubai World Cup, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Arrogate fell down leaving the gate that day, and just ran a race of a lifetime. Florent and I still talk about it. When Gunrunner turned for home, he ran and still got run down. So, all you can hope is to have a big effort. Like just as long as they run their race, I'm happy. But obviously, we'd like to win.
Yeah, Magnitude, certainly a very, very tremendous racehorse, really. I mean, you look at what he did. Remember last year when he burst on the scene in the Risen Star and dominated that field by the length of the stretch, and then he was 40-something to 1, but all of a sudden people were excited about him for the Derby. He gets hurt, comes back, wins the Iowa Derby in July of last year, third in the Travers, second in the Pennsylvania Derby, wins the Clark, wins the Razorback, and here he is in the Dubai World Cup. And anytime your name is mentioned in the same sentence as Curlin and Gunrunner, you've got some ability. Does he put it all together today? Is he good enough to beat horses like Forever Young and Hit Show? We're going to find out coming up in just a little bit. Jose D'Angelo also talked with Laura King, and he talked about his Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, Ben Tornado, in the Golden Shaheen.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here with Ben Tornado. How's he doing?
Very good. He handled the trip very good, and he really likes his track. Everything's going smooth.
Is there a possibility, is it possible that he could have improved since last year?
Last year he ran to me on his peak, but he's doing very well. He was light raced last year, so I think at least keeping his same condition, we're gonna be all right.
I think so as well, and he just looked an absolute monster to me before the Breeders' Cup. And let's talk about that, because that was a tremendous day for you. Was that one of the best days of your life?
Yes, it was a good day. We won the 2 races back to back. Was a nice day.
Absolutely nice day. But do you feel like last year was kind of a career-defining year for you, like just a huge year?
We worked so hard all the year with these two horses, with Ben Donato and Chiso Spicy, with the ultimate goal, Breeders' Cup, and worked perfect. So I always think like whatever happens, winning or losing, just you have to work hard and try to go for more.
And Ben Donato, of course, has travelled before, and he ran in one of the best Saudi derbies ever, didn't he?
Yes, he just was unlucky to run this year against Forever Young and Bugandamo.
Yeah, he was. And how do you feel about the opposition on Saturday? You'll have seen Tuz, I'm sure.
He looks very good. I think the most important is wait for the post position, go from there.
Where would you like to draw?
Otsai always better. He's a sprinter. He have natural speed, so wherever he goes, I think we're gonna be all right. But outside you have less pressure to the horse can decide and the jockey where you want to go.
And you've been here, I think, 3 times now. How much do you want to win here at Meydan?
I hope the first one here this year.
Yeah, it would sure be great if Jose can pick up that win. And Ben Tornado, the Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, haven't seen him since that win on November 1st of last year. We'll see if he's ready and up to the challenge coming up in just a little bit. All right, when I come back, it's time for this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds presented by Spendthrift. Then we'll focus on Keeneland and the spring meet and get you back to Gulfstream and to Arkansas with some conversation with Hall of Famer Todd Pletcher and Brian Nadeau. That's all ahead. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for and there they go. Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. But the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcasts using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
The 100-point qualifiers for this year's Kentucky Derby began last Saturday. At Fairgrounds, recent maiden breaker Emerging Market outgained Sunland Derby champ Pavlovian to win the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. They, along with third-place finisher Golden Tempo, likely have enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby. At Turfway, favorites Full Effort and Stark Contrast dominated the Grade 3 Jeff Ruby, both closing to finish first and second, respectively. There are 4 important 3-year-old stakes today, including 3 100-pointers. At Gulfstream, the Grade 1 Florida Derby brings together a strong field that includes graded stakes winners Commandment, Nearly, and the Puma, as well as the highly regarded Chief Wallaby. At Oaklawn Park, the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby sees a field of 9 headlined by the Sam Davis champ Renegade. He faces Silent Tactic, Litmus Test, and Blackout Time, among others, over 1 1/8 miles. At Maidan, the UAE Derby is expected to have a large field that includes Al Haram, 6 Speed, and Pyromancer. And finally, the Fukuru Stakes goes today and is the final step on Japan's road to the Derby. Next week, the 100-pointers conclude with the Bluegrass at Keeneland, the Santa Anita Derby at Santa Anita, and the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. As of now, there are 13 U.S.-based horses with at least 50 points and several big races still to be run in the next couple weeks, so it'll be interesting to see what the minimum is that's needed to get into the Derby starting gate. Is 50 enough? I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
A warrior from the start.
Dornock is coming back. Dornock in the Remsen.
What separates the best isn't just talent, it's meeting the moment. Look your rival in the eye and say, not today.
It will be Dornock to win the Belmont Stakes.
And Dornock stubborn. Dornock wins the Haskell.
A world-class athlete made for the fight. That's Dornock.
The only horse to beat Mindframe twice and who also beat Sierra Leone twice. Dornock, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Chief Wallaby. Why Tripp might have cost him in the Fountain of Youth, but there's no reason he can't keep moving forward today in the Florida Derby. Number 4 is Nearly. Improving Pletcher trainee looked great in the Holy Bull. He's also running in the Florida Derby. Number 3, Commandment. Big wins in the Mucho Macho Man and Fountain of Youth. He's yet another Florida Derby hopeful. Number 2 is Renegade. Looked awesome breaking his maiden in the Sam Davis. He goes today in the Arkansas Derby. And number 1 is Paladin. Keeps improving and now has 60 Derby points, all but guaranteeing his spot in the Kentucky Derby. He has one more race scheduled before that, though, the Bluegrass at Keeneland next Saturday. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
Now, Paladin going to make for a wonderful renewal of the Bluegrass. He is the leading candidate on a lot of people's lists to win the Kentucky Derby, but he's got to deliver a strong performance next week. Not necessarily a win, but he has to deliver another strong performance, and we'll see how that goes. And so many of you are going to be coming to Keeneland, to Lexington, Kentucky, Central Kentucky for the race meet. Make sure you do it now because they're going to fill up quickly. You call Tony's of Lexington for an incredible meal. Best steak you're ever going to have. Been telling you that for years. It is so true. Great service, great atmosphere. Checks all the boxes, as they like to say. Tony's is on Main Street right behind Rupp Arena, and they will do a wonderful job taking care of you. You tell them that you heard about it here on the program. I would certainly appreciate that, but let them know you heard about it here, and they're going to take great care of you, regardless of whether you mention that or not. But just such wonderful people. Always room for one more at our table is what Tony Ricci always loves to say, but you better get your reservations now because they will fill up quickly if they're not already. Going to continue to talk about Keeneland to kick off hour number 2. That's next after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Equine Forum rolling on. Busy Saturday morning. Florida Derby Day, Arkansas Derby Day. In the first hour of the program, walked you through the late pick 4 at Gulfstream with the Pontiff of the pick 4, Jude Feld. Gave you some insight into each of those races. Gave you a few long shots to watch in those races, too. If you missed any portion of that conversation or any of the show so far, all you have to do is head back to our website after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast whenever you get some time, and you can do that too on your favorite podcast platform. So wherever you get your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network, listen to this show and all the shows we bring your way every single week throughout the year here on HRRN. Poll question this morning, I'm asking you which Derby prep race later today most likely to give us the Kentucky Derby winner. Is it the Florida Derby or is it the Arkansas Derby? You can go to @HRRN on X to cast your vote. You can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or if you don't do social media, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know your thoughts. Two fantastic races, and again, a big one coming up next weekend as well. The Keeneland Spring Meet begins on Friday, and make sure you are there because the racing is going to be just rock solid throughout the entire meet. And, you know, Jim Goodman, who you've heard on this program many times over the years, he does a fantastic job working with horse players, focusing on wagering and contests and those types of things at Keeneland. And Keeneland has always been, I mean, you talk about, this is our Kentucky bred conversation, by the way, and you talk about Kentucky, you can't talk about Kentucky and horse racing without talking about Keeneland. So you're going to hear from Jim momentarily with this week's Kentucky bred conversation. And this segment presented every week by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds, which paid a record $20 million in awards to breeders participating in the KBIF program last year for racing in 2025. As I mentioned, Jim Goodman joins me now. Jim, happy to have you aboard, my friend.
Good morning. How are you today, Michael?
Doing very well. And, you know, I wanted to take this approach to this Kentucky bred conversation segment. Oftentimes I'll interview a trainer or an owner or somebody, a breeder potentially, but there is so much more to the success that Kentucky is experiencing on the racing side of things than the horseman side of it. You have the horse player side too, and my goodness, has that been strong.
Yes, we offer, the entire Kentucky circuit has been good for the last few years. We've obviously had a nice influx of money from the HHR machines, and the KDTF money is supplementing our purses, and we've been very healthy from a wagering standpoint. Our handle has been up substantially for the past 3 years. We had one really bad weather meet, and when you have a 15, 16-day meet, a couple of days can really knock you back. But all in all, we've had a lot of growth in Kentucky wagering, and we're trying to do some things this year to make it even better.
Jim, what do you attribute most of that growth to? Is it a different wagers that you're introducing, or just horse players gravitating toward betting Kentucky races? What's the reason?
I think both of those things. And we started the Turf Pick 3, the $3 Turf Pick 3, about 4 years ago, and a lot of tracks have picked it up. I think that was a very good wager. I think full field sizes, I mean, if you look at field sizes, not only at Keeneland, but at Turfway this past year, at Churchill, at Ellis Park, players want full fields, and they're gravitating toward Kentucky because we have fuller fields, we have better purses. It's a very good time to be a horseman in Kentucky, and I think it's a great time to be a horse player playing our tracks, and it's going to be a really good meet. The weather looks a little bit iffy for right now, but hopefully that'll change by Friday.
What can horse players expect when they start watching the Keeneland races or coming to the races at Keeneland next weekend?
So we got a couple of things that we're initiating this meet. We are going to have faster refresh times. If you're watching the Keeneland simulcast feed, it will be refreshed at 5 seconds. So that should mitigate some of the late odds changes. We've done some things internally in the past couple of years to reduce those, and we only had a few in October. That's one thing we're working toward. We're also working toward more player-friendly wagers. We have added a 15% takeout late pick 3 with a $3 minimum. That was extremely successful at Churchill last fall, and we watched that very closely, and their handle was up. And when you have a higher minimum, players get paid. And also raising the minimum on the regular pick threes to $1. So every day you'll have dollar pick threes throughout the card until the last pick three of the day. We're also doing something very substantial, I think, for the good horse players, and that is to raise the minimum on superfectas from 10 cents to 50 cents. And that's a move that could get a little bit of criticism from the smaller players, but I think if you're playing the horses to make money, 50-cent minimum on the superfecta makes a lot of sense. You can still get into it fairly cheaply if you wheel horses, if you double key horses rather than box them. The 10-cent superfecta box for $240 is going away, but I think if people can be more thoughtful, they'll get paid much, much better. So we've added 15% takeout wagers, the late pick three, the turf pick three. Our doubles are at 15%. We changed that 2 years ago. So we've done a lot of things to lower takeout to make it a more level playing field for the regular horse player.
I love the way you explained the benefits of raising the minimum wagers, the benefits to the horse player, because it was going to be my next question anyways, Jim. Somebody listening might say, well, how can I play as many horses now? I can't play as many horses because the wager is going to cost me too much. So now I've got to eliminate some horses that I would normally use, and you're going to get some kickback on that, I'm sure. But you just laid out the fact that if you can be a little more selective, then you can get a bigger payday too. So there's risk-reward with everything.
Correct. I had a discussion the other day online with, or in my messages with a player that likes to play 6-horse superfecta boxes. And in my conversation back and forth with him, he said, I just can't play it anymore. I said, no, you need to form an opinion and take 1 or 2 horses of those 6 and wheel them or key them, play them for 50 cents. And when you hit that wager, it is going to pay much, much more than just 5 times your 10-cent minimum, because you're eliminating a lot of people that spread. You're also, the CAWs, it helps the regular player for a higher minimum because the CAWs can't pound it as much. And so that's another reason why we want to do that. I don't even remember why we went to 10-cent superfectas. It was, I guess, 12 to 13 years ago, and it was kind of a gimmicky thing, and then everybody caught on to it, and it has diluted the payment of a superfecta substantially. When you look at a superfecta payoff at $1, which it was before the 10 cents came in, many times during our meet, we had such competitive races that you would have it pay to all in the 4th leg. That never happens anymore. So I think you're going to see much, much better superfecta payoffs, much, much better pick 3 payoffs during this meet at Keeneland.
Yeah, I think the attraction to horse players who would like to do 6-horse combinations in the 10-cent supers or whatever the case might be is the fact that, yeah, you're probably going to win a higher percentage of your wagers, but with the higher minimum, you're going to win fewer, and you have to accept that. You're going to probably win fewer times because you're going to have fewer combinations, but the payoffs are going to be substantially higher than you would get with the 10-cent supers.
Yeah, that's correct. And when we started talking about some changes we could do, you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to keep your wagering menu exactly the same every year. You want to try some new things. I think the $3 pick 3 is not a big risk for us because it has been proven successful at Churchill and at Santa Anita. So that's not a huge risk. The 50-cent superfecta, we're going to take a look at her handle and see what it does. We think it'll be successful, and we do know that one of the goals of a racetrack is to increase churn. So when you put more money into a player's hands when he or she hits, then you're exponentially going to increase your handle. So that's one of the things that we understand. We're going to lose some small wager players on the 10-cent supers, and we got to do an effort, make a good effort to inform those people, especially the people on track. But our marketing people have done a good job of getting that out there, and we've already had some positive responses to it.
Jim, what's more beneficial to horse players, the increased minimum wagers or lower takeout?
In my opinion, lower takeout is the better choice. The hard thing about our business model is that, on a regular racetrack, 90% of their handle comes from off track. So you've got host fee deals with ADWs, and you have host fee deals with brick and mortar places that are in place, and those places that take the bet make profit off the difference between the host fee and the takeout. So when you lower takeout, you're reducing their margin. However, when you lower takeout, you're increasing the handle. You're putting that player on a more level playing field. If you're just a regular player that don't get any rebates from ADWs and you're not a CAW player, the lower takeout puts you on a more level playing field simply because there's not as much room for rebates in those other situations. So the two best bets in our market are the daily double at a 15% takeout, and I think the turf pick 3 and the late pick 3 at a $3 minimum with a 15% takeout. The regular player can hit those, do those combinations, be specific in your choices, and you don't have to break the bank, but you can get paid. And you are playing against people at a 15% takeout rather than, some super fat, not at Keeneland, but some supers and tries and picks are at 25, 26, 27%. And you're certainly not playing on a level playing field at those levels.
No, not at all. Talking with Keeneland's Jim Goodman here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Keeneland kicking off that blockbuster 2026 season with the spring meet, which begins on Friday. So make sure you're locked into Keeneland Racing. And, of course, the Bluegrass Stakes, the signature event, next Saturday. We'll see Paladin, the likely favorite for at least on some people's list right now, he is the favorite for the Derby. He has to prove that in the Bluegrass next Saturday, and that's going to be one heck of a horse race. Jim, how about on the contest side of things? What can horse players and fans expect there?
So we're doing our normal Grade 1 gamble, which is the thing that was started by your compadre, Mr. Feld, about 13, 14 years ago, with the leather jackets and 32 people up in the Keeneland room, and we didn't think we'd sell it out. We sold it out in like 10 minutes. So now that Grade 1 gamble has grown to be one of the best contests in the country, with well over 300 players all over the country playing on ADWs and in Canada. And so I'll have about 120 players here on track and maybe 180 to 200 off track. First prize is $65,000 plus a BCBC plus an NHC or a Kentucky Derby betting challenge through TwinSpires. So that contest is on Saturday, April the 11th, and registration is open at our website, keeneland.com/wagering. If you're interested in playing in that, we've still got spots on track. We're going to do the contest in the brand new Dogwood room, which is the second floor room overlooking the paddock. Seats about 220 people, great view of the paddock, great TV coverage, just brand new building. The new building at Keeneland is spectacular. So my contest players are going to get to take a look at that. And then we give away 6 BCBCs, 10 NHCs, and 3 Kentucky Derby betting challenge entries for that one. And then on Friday, I have a $400 contest. That's April 10th, Maker's Mark Day. $400 contest that you have to be on track. And I'll give away 1 BCBC and 3 or 4 NHCs, depending on the number of players. I usually get 250 to 300 players in that one. So if you want to go play on that one, just show up at the track on Friday the 10th and come up to the third floor grandstand, and we can register you and get you going there.
Jim, I was watching some opening day baseball games with the Major League Baseball season the other day, and I was thinking about, great opening days in thoroughbred racing and, days like Del Mar, for example, and the crowd that they get and how special that day is and the traditions that are involved. Opening day of Saratoga is always exciting. Derby week at Churchill Downs, you get that chill, down your spine when you walk into Churchill. Keeneland spring meet, and even the fall, but the Keeneland spring meet looking ahead to the Kentucky Derby is one very special opening day.
Yeah, we don't do opening day like anybody else. We just charge forward and do the Grade 1 Central Bank Ashland and 2 other stakes races, 5 graded stakes on Saturday. So back in the day, we used to get a week to warm up. We'd have the Ashland on opening weekend and then the Toyota Bluegrass the next weekend. But as things have changed with training patterns and horses, we need to move that Bluegrass further away from the Derby. So we open up on Friday and just full blast go into the weekend. Now, this year, we don't have that Sunday, so we just got Friday, Saturday, since Easter falls on Sunday, April 5th. So we'll do 2 days, then 5 days the next week with the Stone Street Lexington, the Jenny Wiley. So, it's a big deal for us. And opening day is really great. It's on a Friday. It happens to be on Good Friday this year. So a lot of people off work in the afternoons. So it's going to be festive. If the weather's good, we'll have somewhere around 20,000, 22,000 people there. Not a bad opening day.
No, a beautiful opening day. Jim, I can't thank you enough for all the time, as always, and enjoy every second of it next weekend and throughout the entire meet, my friend, and keep up the wonderful work.
Well, I will. I hope you enjoy it as well. It's a pleasure putting on a race meet in spring in Kentucky. There's no place I'd rather be.
No, not at all. Jim Goodman here with this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation, where a record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program last year for racing in 2025. KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds, winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Kentucky remains one of the leading racing jurisdictions, paying out $239 million in combined association purse and Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Funds for an average of more than $112,000 per race and an average field size of 8.8 in 2025. Make your horse KTDF KBIF eligible to secure your share of lucrative awards worldwide. For more information, visit KentuckyBreds.com or register KBIF.com. If you missed it in the first hour of the show, this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question ties in to the Florida Derby, and you're going to hear more Florida Derby conversation coming up in just a minute with trainer Todd Pletcher. But the Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia is this. What Florida Derby winner went on to become the first in history to be awarded a Kentucky Derby win due to a disqualification of the original winner? Think about that one. Get your mojo working. I'll have the answer for you coming up at the end of the show, right around 10:55 Eastern. Todd Pletcher coming up next. You won't want to miss it. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
Coolmore Stallion Corniche, a $1.5 million OBS April sale topper by Quality Road and a two-time Grade 1 winner.
But it's Corniche. He's just too good. Corniche wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Voted champion 2-year-old male following his win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, it's no surprise his 72 yearlings sold for an average of over $170,000, with a top-priced colt of $725,000 and a top-priced filly of $525,000. Corniche, standing for only $15,000 at Coolmore's Ashford Stud.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Stormello
Around the far turn, 3/4 of a length over Adore the Golden Scat Daddy. Chaloki's hanging in there on the inside. Notional's being put to the whip. He's on the far outside. And they're coming to the top of the stretch in the Florida Derby. And Stormello and Scat Daddy are right together. Chaloki's in a tight spot on the rail. And Notional is now coming with his run in the final furlong. It is Scat Daddy in front. Notional to the outside. To the inside, Stormello's given way. Chaloki is closing late in the middle of the racetrack. But Scat Daddy's done it again. He's won the Florida Derby. And Edgar Prado, just a tremendous day. Notional was second. Chaloki was third. And then came Boogie Boggs.
Well, that's the way it sounded 19 years ago, 2007, from Larry Colmus at Gulfstream Park. Trainer Todd Pletcher and Scat Daddy crossing the finish line, giving him the first of his now record 8 victories in the Florida Derby. Half of them have come with his main man, fellow Hall of Famer John Velasquez in the irons. They team up again today with Nearly, and should be one fantastic horse race down in South Florida. Todd, appreciate the time, my friend.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mentioned that relationship with Johnny V, and I know you've had so much success over the years together, but at this point, when you give him a leg up, is anything short of anything more than good luck just kind of overkill?
You know, I mean, we generally talk a little bit of strategy before the race. The one thing, you know, when you have a guy like John Velasquez, you're totally comfortable with any audibles that they need to call during the race. But, you know, we will talk a little bit about just, usually it's about how he feels like the race is going to shape up, how I feel like the race is going to shape up. And, you know, every once in a while we'll kind of not be exactly on the same page, but over the years it's been very rare that we see a race, you know, differently.
I've spent a lot of time talking with Johnny about his preparation coming into, well, any race, but certainly a big race like the Florida Derby. And I know how hard he works to get ready for a race and look at the competition. Do you do the same thing?
You know, in a race like this, a lot of the horses you're pretty familiar with because they've been running at Gulfstream or Tampa, and so we've either run against them with other horses or certainly been in races that we followed. So, you know, you kind of get to know them beforehand. But I will sometimes before big races go back and watch replays of various contenders in there just to kind of remind myself what they do or see if there's anything you might expect them to do during the course of the race.
Johnny, having ridden Nearly in each of his 3 victories in his career, all open-length wins, by the way, coming in his last 3 starts, knows him really well. What will you make sure he knows about Nearly when you get with him in the paddock?
You know, I don't think there's a whole lot to really talk about. You know, he hasn't gotten away great in a couple of his races, so we'll probably touch on that. You know, make sure that hopefully, you know, we get a clean, smooth break going and get position going into the first turn. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the track is playing tomorrow. A good portion of the meet, it seems like the inside is not where you want to be. And I think because of that, you know, the jockeys have recognized that, and you'll see a lot of them staying off the rail, which wouldn't be their normal strategy. So, but, you know, being the last race on the card, we'll get an opportunity to kind of hopefully get a feel for how the track's playing. And then really, I think, you know, it's just going to be up to Johnny to decide how quickly they're going early. I envision Nearly being close to the pace, maybe the pace setter. It's, you know, that's sort of going to be in Johnny's hands as to how fast he feels like they're going early on.
Have you had to do some things in the morning, Todd, with him to kind of encourage him to get off to a faster start?
No, I mean, his behavior's been very good in the gate. I think it was just kind of circumstance in a couple of his races. He kind of got bumped around a little bit, and he didn't jump real well in his first start and got some dirt in his face and didn't react well to it. Aside from that, I mean, you know, he's really handled everything else terrifically, and so yeah, just hopefully you know, make sure he's standing squarely on all fours and ready to break and go from there.
What was your opinion of his win in the Holy Bull?
You know, I mean, it was kind of an interesting race. They went pretty quick early. They didn't finish real fast, but it still came back very solid figures. Sometimes days like that, when there's only 1-2 turn race to really gauge, you know, it makes it a little bit hard to know exactly. But it was a race that looked like on paper that it was a bit of a match race, and for us, we couldn't let the favorite get away, and so we were kind of rode it the way you would typically ride a match race, and Johnny kept some pressure on the Brad Cox horse, and then kind of shook loose from the field and won pretty comfortably. And Johnny, I wouldn't say he totally wrapped up on him, but he's kind of coasted into the finish.
When horses begin their 3-year-old season, there's a lot of conversation of their mental and physical development and maturity from their 2-year-old year into their 3-year-old year. Nearly hasn't started since that win in the Holy Bull on January 31st, 2 months ago. Could you say the same thing now with that 2-month gap? Do you see anything different in Nearly than you did on January 31st?
Well, I mean, we do see what we were hoping we would see, and that's that he's continued to fill out. He's grown a bit. He looks sensational, his weight and his coat, and all those things are exactly where we would want it to be at this stage. We feel like we've been able to train him aggressively enough to get him fit, but we've also been able to take kind of the 2 months in between races and fill him up a little bit and freshen him up a little bit. He had those races were pretty close together. He had the maiden race at Aqueduct, and then the maiden race at Gulfstream, and then the allowance race at Gulfstream, and then the Holy Bull. So we had 4 races pretty close together. And we felt like, to run one more time in the Fountain of Youth in between, that didn't really give us an opportunity to maybe freshen him up a little bit. And it was tempting because he's such a good feeling colt. He's a one that comes out every day ready to train, and he's happy training. But we just felt like for us to hopefully make another move forward, and then hopefully make the big move forward in the Kentucky Derby, that the right thing to do was to pass the Fountain of Youth, focus on the Florida Derby, and hopefully do well in there. And then you got 5 weeks to get ready for the big one.
For the big one and for the 1.25 mile test, which is a question that all of those 3-year-olds will have to answer when they get into the Kentucky Derby starting gate, if they're lucky enough to do so. What is it about Nearly that gives you the confidence that you could be looking at a true 1.25 mile horse?
Well, I think his pedigree gives you some confidence. He's out of a mineshaft mare, which AP Indy line, and that's going to provide some stamina. I mean, his sire pretty much does everything from producing 5 furlong Breeders' Cup Turf champions to the best stayer in the country and next. So the pedigree, both top and bottom, gives you some confidence. But he also gives us confidence in the way that he's finished his races and the way that he's finished his breezes, and his gallop outs have been strong. So, everything that we see from him indicates that he's going to handle the added distance. But as we all know, that the Derby's a different kind of race, and so many variables can play into that. But we like what we see, and he gives us confidence that he'll handle it.
3 for 4 lifetime. Each of those 3 wins coming in succession in his last 3 starts by a combined 20 lengths. How the heck did you get him beat in his first start?
I tell you what, I said the same thing. Not only got beat, but just didn't really fire at all, and it was just so different than what we'd seen from him in the mornings. I mean, he gave us a lot of confidence going into that race that, I would have bet more that he was going to be a TDN rising star than that he would be completely off the board. But sometimes they just need a race, and when he didn't break well, and then he got some spray back from the dirt, and he just didn't know what to do with it, and it's a little green in the turn. The horse kind of veered in a little bit, and he shied away from him. Just a green first timer, but again, not what we'd been seeing from him in the mornings, and so we just kind of drew a line through it. He breezed back really well, and then what we saw in his next race was more of what we were expecting.
We'll talk about Renegade in just a minute in the Arkansas Derby, but let me stick at Gulfstream here for a minute. She Be Smooth goes in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and she has yet to taste defeat. Both of her victories have been ultra impressive. She's the 7-5 morning line favorite. Tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing from She Be Smooth.
She's just a real sweet filly to train, just low key, does everything that you ask her to do. Wasn't real flashy leading into her debut. We weren't really sure what to expect, but she ran a very professional race, beat a filly that came back to win her next start impressively. Then in the Devon Dale, it looked like we had a good setup on paper, that there was a fair amount of speed in there, and Flavia and I just talked about, riding her patiently and letting her settle, which she almost did too much. She was well behind the rest of the field down the backside, but put in a really strong run around the turn, and one going away. So it was a exciting race to watch, and she's been kind of a pleasant surprise for us. We didn't know exactly what we had going into her maiden race, but she certainly stepped up there and then took another big step forward in only her second start to winning, the Devon Dale.
She gets a rematch with the filly she beat in that maiden race that you alluded to, Prom Queen, who breaks just to her inside in that Gulfstream Park Oaks this afternoon. And man, I can imagine that you probably still get a little pumped up when you have to square off with a rival like that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. One of the things that gave us confidence going into Devon Dale was that that Prom Queen came back and won impressively. So it kind of gave us added encouragement that was a quality maiden race that she'd won, and sometimes you'd like to take a little different progression and try an allowance race, but felt like given the Devon Dale was the right choice, and it was great to see her step up so quickly in her career to do that.
Well, the other horse that you're running in a great stake at Gulfstream is Grande, and he'll go in the Ghost Sapper. Such a cool horse, isn't he?
He's a tough horse, and what was really cool was to fight back like he did last time, and that was first race off a long layoff, and it looked like, at the 8th pole, 16th pole, he's going to run well, but he's going to finish second, and we'd have been happy with that off the bench like that. And then next thing you know, he goes from being almost a link down to getting back in front, and it was just it was a fun race to watch, and we were proud of him for being so resilient.
Other than a victory, what do you hope to see from him that sets him up for the rest of his campaign here in 2026?
Yeah, just more of the same. He's run well every start of his career, and we're just hoping to keep moving forward like that, and feel like he's like a lot of the Curlins that tend to get a little better as they get older, and he seems to be doing that. So this is hopefully a step towards some bigger races this summer and fall.
Talking with Hall of Fame trainer Todd Pletcher here on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Todd, in Arkansas, it's all about Renegade. 3-2 on the morning line in the Arkansas Derby. That win in the Sam F. Davis last time out, his first win of his career, very, very impressive. Tell me more about Renegade and what you're seeing from him.
Yeah, I mean, this horse, again, he's another one that's run well pretty much every start. His first one was maybe better than it looks on paper, but then he got disqualified after crossing the finish line first and in a maiden race. But we treated it like a win and thought he ran very well in the Remsen. But Sam Davis was, I thought, a very good race. I love the way he finished. He really accelerated the last 16th of a mile. I think shaded 6 seconds for the final 16th, which is good to see, and come back, trained very well. He's already run well at 1 1/8 miles, so we're confident about stretching him out. And I think he's versatile enough to kind of put himself in whatever position IRAD thinks he needs to be in, and we're excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking that Paladin is the horse to beat in the Derby picture right now from what we've seen coming in at the end of March. What does that say about Renegade, though? Because he has been right there with Paladin.
Yeah, no, I think it says a lot, and Paladin, is very impressive coming back in the Risen Star, and so kind of, with those two coming out of the Remsen, I think shows what a high quality race that was this year and at the end of last year, and so we're looking forward hopefully to a rematch down the road.
We talked about Johnny V and that relationship and how good that has been over the years. Irad Ortiz, he rode for Brad Cox. He rode Commandment in his last 2 starts, including that win in the Fountain of Youth. He says, nope, I'm sticking with Renegade for Todd, the Sam F. Davis winner. I know you don't need validation with your horses, Todd, but how nice is it to know that he's leaning your direction?
Well, I mean, I think, we'd spoke right after the Sam Davis and talked about Arkansas, so I think that's been on his radar. And, he's in high demand, as he should be. And, we're happy to have him on board. And I'm sure there'll be some moving around between now and the Derby, but hopefully Renegade runs well. And, we'd love to have Irad stay with him.
Trainer Todd Pletcher here on HRRN. Todd, I'll ask you about one more horse before I let you go, and we'll look ahead to the Bluegrass next weekend. Class President. Boy, this is a horse that's really come along, huh?
That was another gutsy effort, It's kind of, I wouldn't say quite like Grande's where he was passed by a length, but it looked like that other horse put a head in front of him mid-stretch, and, he was just determined, kept digging in, fighting, and was able to get back nose in front, and big effort. Only his third start and first time around 2 turns. He's a horse that we've always liked the way he trained and felt like coming into it that he had a chance, but he stepped up, and now we're looking forward to the Bluegrass.
Yep, he seems like a really nice horse. Todd, I appreciate the visit. I know you got a busy day ahead, so I'll let you go. Really appreciate the time as always, my friend, and good luck. Let's go get it done.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, Todd Pletcher here on HRRN. Looking to start a new streak in the Kentucky Derby, by the way. You remember he had that long streak of Derby starters snapped last year when he didn't have a horse in the race. Well, he's back with a vengeance this year, isn't he? I think that just kind of woke up the sleeping giant. He said that's not going to happen again, and he'll look to start that new streak and maybe another Kentucky Derby victory on the horizon for the Hall of Famer coming up in 5 weeks' time. Okay. When I come back, going to continue to talk about the racing at Gulfstream Park because Brian Nadeau does a fantastic job handicapping down there. He's going to walk through not just the Florida Derby, the Gulfstream Park Oaks, but some of the other stake races for you on a loaded Saturday afternoon in South Florida. We'll do that next here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Fans, come out today to Santa Anita for some great racing. We have 9 races with our first post at 1 p.m. The best way to bet those 9 races is with our wagering menu that helps you make money with our low takeout bets. Terrific low wagers today include 2 pick 4s, 2 pick 5s, a $3 late pick 3, the ever-popular coast-to-coast pick 5, and the $5 late daddy double. And, of course, tremendous racing is right around the corner as we present the Santa Anita Derby on April 4th. That is Easter weekend, and we have a plethora of events surrounding that big day, like the Front Runner Buffet, a barbecue in the Loge box seats, a 5K run, a beer festival, a spring carnival, and so much more. You can get all the details, and you can purchase advance tickets over at santanita.com. My best bet today comes in race number 9. I love number 9, Jimmy Wingfield. He is impeccably bred and has some scintillating works leading up to his debut. End the day with a winner. Santa Anita, it's your best bet for world-class entertainment and racing on Easter weekend.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They move by 3/4 in 1:11 and 3. They're a quarter of a mile from home. It's still the sitting chilly Mike Smith on Mataket Road. Zayas all over Reno Equos and Tapan Street swung to their center of the racetrack. They're an 1/8 of a mile from home. Here comes Tapan Street surging forward now to take the lead. Sovereignty runs at him from the outside with a 16th to go. If you're looking for a shortcut to Louisville, take a ride on Tapan Street. He wins the Florida Derby by a length and a half. Second is Sovereignty. Third is Neo Equos. Fourth is Mataket Road. Disruptors up 5th for the high 5 in 1:49 and 1.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern here this morning. That's the way it sounded from Pete Aiello 1 year ago at Gulfstream Park when Tapan Street took the 2025 Florida Derby, giving Brad Cox his first win in the race. He's looking for number 2, and he has a good chance to do it this afternoon, but One of the gentlemen he's going to have to beat is the man you just heard in the previous segment. That is the Hall of Famer and 8-time Florida Derby winner, Todd Pletcher. Yeah, it's one heck of a horse race. You just throw in those two names and then include guys like Bill Mott, Gustavo Delgado, the Puma. It's going to be a fantastic renewal of the Florida Derby this afternoon. Brian Nadeau does a great job handicapping down at Gulfstream Park. You're going to hear from him momentarily, but I want to update you. As we were in that interview with Todd Pletcher, the UAE Derby was being contested in Dubai. Wonder Dean punching his ticket to the Kentucky Derby if his connections choose to go. He wins it for Japan. He beats 6 Speed, who also will have enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby if he chooses to do so, as he gets 60 points for the runner-up effort there. So Wonder Dean defeating 6 Speed in the UAE Derby. More tickets to be punched this afternoon at Gulfstream Park. Brian, good morning.
Mike, it's good to hear from you. Good morning to you. Happy Florida Derby Day. What a day.
Yeah, what a day. Exciting day. I mean, you have the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, obviously the next points race is on the horizon. But let's talk about the quality of this field in the Florida Derby. Nobody would be surprised if the Derby winner comes out of this race today.
Yeah, it's a tremendous race. We were very lucky to have the Fountain of Youth and the throwdown between Commandment and Chief Wallaby, and I think that, you know, not being the Gulfstream guy, but that was the best 3-year-old race in the country so far. And I think we're going to up the ante today because, you know, there's 4 legitimate Derby kind of horses, Florida Derby, but also Kentucky Derby kind of horses. So just an update as we do this live. Albus, the 1, is not going to run. The 5, Redland Rebels, we knew he was going to be at Oaklawn in their Derby. And the 9, Gregarious, the maiden, is scratched. So we'll have a field of 6. But, yeah, wow, what 4 heavy hitters we have, Mike.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How much are you looking forward to that rematch between Commandment and Chief Wallaby?
Yeah, it's, you know, Mike, the Derby today is interesting. You were talking points, and, you know, it's a race within a race almost because Commandment and the Puma, they're okay. They've got their points. And, you know, Chief Wallaby they need points in some way, shape, or form. So you wonder, you know, is somebody a little more cranked than somebody else? But as far as the rematch, I mean, boy, did they throw down in the Fountain of Youth. That was just so special. And now today, I never like to dismiss the Fountain of Youth. That's silly. And we see how even last year, you know, obviously with Sovereignty winning. But we always talk about the Florida Derby as a true race, Mike. This is an 9 furlong full stretch race, unlike the Fountain of Youth with the short stretch at 1 mile and a 16th. You got to earn it, and you got to be a racehorse today. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see it.
Well, 26 Kentucky Derby winners have come from the Florida Derby. That is the most of any prep race in the history of our sport. Let's stick with Chief Wallaby and Commandment for a minute. Which one has the advantage over the other today?
I don't even think it's close. I think it's Commandment. You just go back and watch the Fountain of Youth, and I've said this several times, and I know Irad went to Oaklawn to ride Renegade, but if you watch near the finish line, Irad almost kind of pulled the Ramon Dominguez, where he just knew, I've got this. I've got plenty left in the tank. Don't worry about it. We're going to get there. And again, Commandment just galloped out freakishly after the race. I think he wants to run all day. I'm not sold on Chief Wallaby wanting this trip. And I know there's two schools of thought with Chief Wallaby. Obviously, he's a huge talent. And a lot of people are going to think the way he ran in the Fountain of Youth, really taking all the worst of it as a one-start maiden winner, going 2 turns, winners, seasoned horses. A lot of people think he's going to move forward off that. Well, that's possible, Mike, but there's another kind of side to the coin that says, yikes now. This is going to be the 3rd time he's going to have to go to the well, and I'm not so sure he's going to like this trip as much, and I'm not so sure he's going to be able to just bring it back again. So I'm a little against him today, to be honest with you.
Todd Pletcher spent a lot of time talking about Nearly in the interview that our listeners just heard. This is an ultra-talented horse. He is also getting an acid test today in this spot. What do you do with Nearly?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly, Mike. As awesome as he's been, and he has been, no doubt about it, he's could be a little dressed up. He is meeting real horses today. And Bravaro, who he just absolutely spanked in the Holy Bull, he was even worse in the Fountain of Youth. So we know now Bravaro is not a true two-turn horse. He's a nice horse. He's not a Triple Crown two-turn horse. Nearly was chasing a wild pace that day, and he's fresh today. Is he going to have to do that again? He was dueling after a half mile. Again, Mike, that was a short stretch finish line race, true race today. Does he get a little leg weary? I like the fact that he's coming in fresh. And, you know, I didn't hear what Todd said, but I'm sure Todd's got to have him pretty cranked today, Mike, because he needs points. So I put him in second. I think he will run well. I'm a little leery if he's going to run like he did in the Fountain of Youth, what's going to be in the stretch, because, you know, Commandment theoretically is supposed to be running best of all of them late.
Okay, let's say it's somebody other than the big three, if you will, that we just talked about. Outside of those three, who else are you looking at?
Well, that's the other thing, because the Puma doesn't need points, and this is just a means to an end to get him to Louisville. I think he's too slow anyway, Mike, to be perfectly honest with you. But he's a talented horse. I think the one horse has got to be Wayne's Law, because he beat the Puma comfortably in the Sam Davis. He's got speed. I know the Puma didn't have an ideal trip that day, but, you know, he beat him on the square, and he was on the lead, and he fought hard to the end, you know, even though Renegade swooped them all and won easily. You know, Wayne's Law, with a breakthrough effort, didn't have Lasix that day, so he doesn't have to worry about any of that, you know, and he is a relatively seasoned horse. So in a six-horse field, you know, if something funky happens, he's got some speed. I guess he would be the one, Mike.
You're not predicting the fairy tale ending for Eddie Plesa Jr.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
Well, we have to mention Timeless Victory, because he's the only horse in the race to have run at this distance. And, oh, by the way, he won by 6 lengths at this distance. So it's noteworthy, and he did it easily, but he also did it with Lasix, and he also did it against, quite honestly, a group of horses that you probably wouldn't bet Thursday in a 1X. So he's looking up at all these, but that's, who cares? That's not the point. You mentioned Eddie Plesa Jr. What a career. And it's just, to me, it's fitting that the last horse he'll saddle is going to be in the Curlin Florida Derby.
What other storylines on today's card are you most excited about, Brian?
Well, Mike, I think we have to talk about the Oaks. I mean, it's a throwdown race. I think Prom Queen could be a superstar. And quite possibly She Be Smooth is already there. I mean, you go back and watch her Devona Dale win when she won by 6 lengths in a jog. Scary good. And she beat Prom Queen when they hooked up in their debuts. But go back and watch Prom Queen, and I know people just look at the form. Okay, she won by 8 lengths in a maiden special race. She didn't beat anything. Go back and watch the race. She was about 20 lengths the best. She got in trouble. She was in a bad spot between horses. She essentially had to go back to last, to loop on the outside. And it was a really devastating performance. I can't wait to see these two gals go back at it again. And, you know, again, not to be the Gulfstream guy, but much like our Derby today, this Oaks today could have a very, very lasting impact on the Oaks, you know, the first Friday in May in Kentucky.
Yeah, it certainly could. It's a wonderful card. Give me an update on the weather.
The weather looks just absolutely picture perfect. I saw a few tweets about rain. I mean, my forecast has no rain at all. Low 80s maybe. There was not a cloud in the sky when I walked in here today. Now, this is South Florida. We're getting closer and closer to the summer. So, you know, talking about the weather at 9:45 in the morning might not mean a damn thing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, let alone 6:42 in the evening. But right now, everything looks just tremendous, Mike. The turf is firm. The main track is fast. Obviously, Papa Tapita race in there or two, but it's a fun day. We've got a mandatory tomorrow, but, you know, it's a great day to kind of close it all down, so to speak.
Brian, enjoy every second of it, brother. Really appreciate the time, as always. Good luck at the windows later today, too.
Mike, I appreciate it. You as well, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks always for having me.
All right, you got it. Brian Nadeau, live from Gulfstream Park. Busy morning for him. Really appreciate the visit, and great analysis of the Florida Derby. Not just the horses that are expected to be contenders, but a couple potential upsetters in that race. And again, scratch down to a field of 6, so keep that in mind when you're doing your handicapping. Of course, the Arkansas Derby, you heard Todd talk about that with Renegade and his opinion of Renegade. And I think it's worth noting, and I asked him that in the conversation, Paladin is regarded as the top Derby horse right now. We'll see him in the Bluegrass Stakes next weekend. What does that say for Renegade? I think it flatters Renegade for sure. And if Renegade runs a monster race today, I know he's supposed to. I know he's the heavy favorite. You better put a circle around Paladin next week. Doesn't have to win that race next week, but you better believe he's going to run a good race. At least you would expect so. All right, 2 hours down, 1 to go. When I come back, I'll take a look at a few dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend and tell you what's coming up in hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Think back to the last time you were in nature. What comes to mind? Hiking through a lush forest, floating on a lazy river, or perhaps watching a vibrant sunset on a beach full of glistening plastic bottles and food wrappers. Unfortunately, this isn't a joke. Here in the U.S., we generate the most plastic waste in the world, with 70% of it ending up in landfills. And by the time you're done listening to this ad, more than a dump truck's worth of plastic will have made it into the ocean. Plastic has become a useful part of our everyday lives, but it's polluting the air, water, and soil that all life needs to survive. This is a human problem that can be solved with human action, but it's going to take all of us, from individuals to businesses to governments and everyone in between. Help create a cleaner future for both people and nature. Visit wwf.earth/plastics.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and 2 of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. VetTix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Winding down hour 2, getting ready for hour number 3. James Scully has your TwinSpires triple play coming up momentarily. Kurt Becker and his Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. Dale and Tim, I asked, they answer 10:30 Eastern. So a loaded third hour of the show as we continue to look ahead to the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby. A couple quick historical dates in racing history. This is the anniversary, 60 years ago, that we watched the biggest upset in Florida Derby history. Williamstown Kid pulling off a shocker. Kurt Becker has the story of Williamstown Kid coming up in the third hour of the show. Again, 10:20 Eastern for a Stroll Through Racing History presented by Keeneland. And I love this one. I'm going to give you this one. Tomorrow, March 29th, 1917 is when Man o' War, who would go on to win 20 of his 21 career starts, was foaled at Nursery Stud in Lexington. And on that same day, March 28th, 1938, in observance of his 21st birthday, the celebration was broadcast nationally via radio from Faraway Farm, where he stood at stud. I just think that's so cool. Maybe it's the radio guy in me, but I love that. All right, 2 hours down, 1 to go. Again, loaded third hour of the program. Plenty more conversation about the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby coming your way next. This is hour 3 of the Equine Forum. Get to it right after this 10-second pause for station identification here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Forever Young though for Japan, who comes up to the outside of Autobahn, goes past by a length. Forever Young drawing away here in the late stages, and it's another Japan domination in the UAE Derby.
Go Maggie Go is holding on to this lead from off the tracks. Paula Queen is down on the inside. Go Maggie Go's got it close to home. It is Go Maggie Go. Paula Queen and off the tracks. Go Maggie Go wins the Gulfstream Park Oaks.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
They're driving toward the wire. It is Smarty Jones by 3. Barrigo trying to make one lane move. Pro Prado into rail. Smarty Jones leading by 2. It is Smarty Jones. One step more to Kentucky and one giant step to $5 million.
And Barbaro struts his step. It is Barbaro to the final furlong. He is a neck in front of Sharp Humor, who will not go away. Barbaro only ahead in front. Sharp Humor runs his heart out at the rail. Sun River a closing third. Barbaro, Sharp Humor. Barbaro's got him. Barbaro wins.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back, hour 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, barreling toward the finish line on this Saturday morning, 5 weeks away from the Run for the Roses, and what a weekend it is. You think things are getting a little serious? Yeah, Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby, and Dubai World Cup Day over in Dubai, and you've been hearing about all of the storylines associated with those races over the first 2 hours of the program. If you did miss any portion of the show so far, don't worry. You can check it all out on podcast. 11 a.m. Eastern is when I wrap things up. The podcast will be available on our website shortly thereafter. That's horseracingradio.net, or you can check it out on your favorite podcast platform. Wherever you get your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and follow along with this show and all the shows we bring your way each and every week. Well, hour 3 loaded with more content, including the TwinSpires Triple Play. James Scully will join me momentarily to give you 3 races to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History comes up at 10:20. That's a great look back at Williamstown Kid, the horse that provided the biggest upset in Florida Derby history 60 years ago in 1966. So stay tuned for that story presented by Keeneland. And I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. They'll be here 10:30 Eastern to wrap up the show as we do every week and take a look at some of the hottest topics in the sport today. But without further ado, we say hello to my good friend James Scully in the TwinSpires Triple Play. Happy Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby Day, brother.
Yes, sir. Mike, it's the best time of the year. We're in the heart of the Kentucky Derby, major prep season. Saw 2 really good races last week. And like you said, the Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby, they're both going to potentially provide serious contenders to the Kentucky Derby. And then we got one more weekend of it to come next week.
We are going to talk about one of those prep races on this segment here this morning, because you have chosen the Florida Derby as one of the 3 races in this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Not the Arkansas Derby, though, because there's a favorite in there by the name of Renegade. You don't think he can be beat?
I do not, and I think I'm not really keen on any of his rivals. I think I love this comeback. I think he's improved from 2 to 3, and he's poised to run a really big race in there. I think the competition will be, much deeper at Churchill Downs, but he looks like a serious contender for Todd Pletcher to me. The Florida Derby, completely different makeup, where you got 4 horses all in with a chance to, win contenders today and win contenders possibly at Churchill in a month. So it's obviously been a real important race over the last 20 years. 7 Kentucky Derby winners have come through the Florida Derby, including Sovereignty last year.
All right, well, let's kick it off with race 8 at Gulfstream, and we remind you that TwinSpires is now available in Mississippi. So remember that for those listeners who are tuning in Mississippi. That's good news, isn't it?
That's excellent news. Really happy to be down there. Got a lot of players. People have already signed up. I want to make sure for all of our players, if you go to our offers page on either a desktop or app, we got a $2,000 late pick 5 hit it and split it at Gulfstream today. We got bet back promotions surrounding all these Derby preps and even the Oaks prep at Gulfstream. And then check out our tournaments page. We got lots of handicapping contests going on for different budgets, different racetracks. Go to the tournaments tab at TwinSpires for the details and schedule.
Race 8 at Gulfstream is the 1.5 mile turf event. It's the Grade 3 Orchid, $175,000 purse, fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. James, it's your first leg that you've chosen for the TwinSpires Triple Play. How come?
Well, because, this pretty really well-matched field in here. I think there's just one long shot that really doesn't have a chance, 7-horse field. But I like Aria. I don't see much speed in here on paper, and I expect Aria's start to keep advancing off of a really solid front-running effort last time in the Christophe Clement, where she was able to control the pace early and finish second. This is a 6-year-old mare who ran her best races way back when in 2024 in Argentina on the dirt. When she came to U.S. last year, Nacho Correa's her former trainer, tried her on the main track. It was obvious she couldn't compete, so he switched her to turf, and I love the way she progressed last year. Really nice win at Keeneland to conclude last season, a convincing win. And she's come back this year and has run 2 bang-up seconds. I really like that race at Turfway in the Florence Stakes. There was some speed signed on there, so she had a forwardly placed trip and got beat late. And then last time in the Clement, they came after her on the far turn and into the stretch, and while she wound up coming up a little bit short, I think she's poised to keep progressing off of that race for a ratio to pause. Her best turf races, I think, could be in front of her, and I look for Aria Stark to run a big race on the front end in the Orchid today.
Yeah, unfortunately, the horse that beat her in those last 2 starts, you just talked about, Speed Shopper, is back in here. But I love these types of races because it gives us a fantastic rematch.
It really does. And, you can take a look at Donna Claudia. She's a contender for sure for Safi Joseph. And then Beleza is the morning line favorite for Miguel Clement. All 3 of those fillies or mares will take some money in here, Mike. So I'm guaranteed a price. And I just think Aria Stark off of these last 2 runs. The real key, too, is I like horses that are improving, Mike, that then also in combination show improved speed. And you can just see these last 2 races. She's been more involved from the start, and I think she's going to put it all together on the front end today.
All right, breaking from the inside post, number 1, Ira Stark, the top pick in race number 8 at Gulfstream for James Scully to kick off this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. James, the second race you have chosen is race number 14. That is the final race on today's program at Gulfstream Park. 6:42 Eastern is the post. It's the Grade 1 Keeneland Florida Derby, 1.8 miles on the main track. Win and you're in the Kentucky Derby in 5 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's interesting in here. Commandment and the Puma are both really well situated for the Derby. Already have at least 50 points. The Puma has more than that. And Chief Wallaby has 25. So even if he ran third, that would get him to 50. 50 made the field last year, and I think there's a good chance. It's going to make it be enough this year. A horse who does need to run well is Nearly, and I think he's poised for his best here for Todd Pletcher. This is a colt by Not This Time out of a mineshaft mare that at Gulfstream this winter, broke his maiden going 6 furlongs, and then won a 7 furlong entry-level allowance. Both those races, he sat just off the pace and then pounced, winning by at least 5 lengths by a combined 14 and a quarter lengths for the 2 starts. In the Holy Bull, he had the favorite in that race was Cannoneer. He was a speed horse and nearly took it right to him from the start, put him away, and still wins by 5+ lengths. Now, he didn't come home real fast, but he got a ton out of that race, in my opinion, Mike. I love how he's come back with back-to-back bullet works in preparation. And the thing about this race is that in the Derby, a horse like Nearly could be looking just a gun for the lead because he's class speed. But I don't think with all this and Wayne's Law to his inside, he necessarily needs to be showing the way. So I think John Velasquez and Nearly are going to get a good trip up close from the start, and they're going to have to come get him in the stretch.
This is a strong race. I mean, you look at Nearly, and if he does step up and run his race the way you expect him to, he's going to be among the favorites on the first Saturday in May. But, Commandment has certainly done very little wrong in his career. Chief Wallaby proved last time out he belongs at this level. This is a race that is going to give us horses that are going to take money at the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think Chief Wallaby, I think he's going to be favored. I think his number profile, and he's got a lot going for him for Belmont. And I think Nearly will probably be the second choice. And I think Commandment, even though he's the 5-2 second choice on the morning line, will probably be third. But I do think those 3 horses, like you said, it's being a strong field. I think right now they've run faster than the Puma has. So the Puma is certainly capable of continuing to progress. But, I think a minor award would be more realistic for him, and they're looking for him a peak performance on May 2nd.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Puma, because I was going to ask you if this is a prove you belong type of race for the Puma.
Well, not really. I mean, he could run third, and even fourth. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be that best outcome, but to me. We saw it like last year with Sovereignty, where he's going to need to run fast and increase his speed ratings to be competitive in this race. But Sovereignty ran the faster, better race in the Fountain of Youth, and that pretty much locked up his bid. And he still ran a really good second in the Florida Derby, but it wasn't as visually impressive as the Fountain of Youth, and the number was lower. But that race got him to where he was going, and it's the same thing for the Puma. He needs to keep building towards the Derby, and if he comes running, he's going to be off the pace too, whereas his other rivals, I believe, Commandment and Chief Wallaby have more tactical ability, going to be more up-close stalking than he will. They'll just be happy with a good finish, even if it comes in third.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going with that question is, he didn't make yes, he ran great to win the Tampa Bay Derby, but it's a grade 3. It's not the level of the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, the Bluegrass, and I think that he needs to make believers of some of his fans out there and say, okay, yeah, I do belong. This is the level I belong to be playing at.
Here's the thing he has going, though, a little bit, though. If you look at him and with the glass half full, this Delgado knows how to get a 3-year-old to deliver his absolute best in the Derby. And Mage ran 4th in the Fountain of Youth and 2nd in the Florida Derby. And nobody was saying, oh, he was the best horse in either of those races. They were just building blocks towards his peak effort on Derby Day. So he does have that little bit of an element where you have to respect him because these connections know what they're doing.
Yeah, they certainly do. James, any chance that trainer Eddie Plesa Jr. wraps up his brilliant career with an upset victory in today's Florida Derby?
I'm going to say, unfortunately, no. I mean, he couldn't have picked a more difficult spot for his first dirt stakes attempt. As you're going from that entry-level allowance to the Florida Derby. I would think, the best-case scenario for him would be running respectably for part of the race, but he's going to get tired late.
Yeah, 2,528 career victories for Eddie Plisa coming into Saturday. We'll see if he can add to it, and boy, what a way it would be to wrap up what's been a fantastic career for him after announcing his retirement. Okay, race 12 at Oaklawn, buddy, your final leg of the triple play that you have chosen. And this is not the Arkansas Derby. That will be race 13. You talked about it earlier. Renegade looks like the horse to beat in there. Not going to offer any value. But you think you can find some value in the race before it, race 12?
I do, and I like number 11, Baby Vino. And listen, this is a horse that was bred for longer distances, and he ran second first time out in a front-running performance at 6 furlongs in December. He came back in his second start. He cut one of the fastest-paced maiden race of the meet. That February 6th maiden completely fell apart. He was part of the early pace, and the top two closed from last and next to last. I liked him last time, stretching the mile on the 16th. I thought he'd be forward, get a perfect up-close trip. He'd love to stretch out. And what happened, Mike, was he stumbled out of the starting gate, Baby Vino did, and immediately veered into the horse who was to his immediate inside, who then veered into another rival. At that point, Jamie Torres pulled him back. I mean, he had to get him out of trouble, and that left him back towards the back of the pack early. I didn't think he had any chance after that, but he came running with a really good run to be third. Listen, he's a horse that in his first two starts has earned pace ratings of 96, 97, 100, and 98. Those are early pace numbers. Last time out, he got a late pace number of 98. He is a horse that is progressing. Schultz worked him right back 2 weeks later. She put a 6 furlong breeze into this Baby Vino in advance of this start. I think he's going to be obviously up close. He needs to be up close from the start. I don't think he'll necessarily be showing the way, but I look for him to show speed, to avoid getting caught too wide, and sit a favorable up-close trip before producing a strong finish. Number 11, Baby Vino in race 12, Mike.
All right, James, let's recap those three selections in this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. You go with number 1, Ira Stark, 8-1 on the morning line in the 8th race at Gulfstream today to kick things off. Race 14 at Gulfstream, the Florida Derby. You'll take the Todd Pletcher trained Nearly, number 6, 3-1 on the morning line. And in race 12 at Oaklawn, number 11, Baby Vino at odds of 10-1. And we'll remind our listeners to make sure they're playing those races and all the races they're going to bet this week and every week with TwinSpires. And James, I know so many of our listeners take time to call you and Bobby Neuman every Thursday on the Brisnet.com call-in show, which airs from 6 to 7 Eastern here on these same Sirius XM channels on HRRN. And I know how much they appreciate your insight, brother. So I appreciate it here this morning as well.
Yes, thank you, Mike. We love the call-in show. Bobby Neuman and we get to hear from callers all around the country, talk about handicapping issues in racing. It's great to get the feedback and spend that hour talking about all issues surrounding horse racing.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck.
All righty. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
James Scully with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. If you missed it in the first 2 hours of the program, our Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question on this Saturday morning is as follows. What Florida Derby winner went on to become the first in history to be awarded a Kentucky Derby win due to disqualification of the original winner? Think about that one for a minute. Get your mojo working. The answer will be revealed at the end of the show, right around 10:55 Eastern Time. Coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his Stroll Through Racing History presented by Keeneland. An awesome story about a horse named Williamstown Kid. You won't want to miss it. I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim still to come, 10:30 Eastern. That's all ahead. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum continues next, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He scored one win in 19 starts as a 3-year-old, and even that victory came via promotion by the stewards. And he remains the biggest upset winner in the history of the Florida Derby. His name was Williamston Kid. Foaled April 3rd, 1963 at Timberlawn Farm of breeder E.K. Thomas in Paris, Kentucky, Williamston Kid was a bay colt by Pete out of Miss Berea by Mr. Trouble. His sire was memorable for having pulled a $60 upset of Coletown in Chicago in 1948, while his dam was a $1,200 claimer. Purchased privately as a yearling for $5,000 by Detroit industrialist Paul Turns and trainer Jimmy Bartlett, Williamston Kid was named for the town of Williamston, Michigan, where Bartlett's farm was located. The Kid portion of the name was a tribute to Bartlett's grandson Bill, who was the farm manager. Turns and Bartlett came from different backgrounds, with Turns being a University of Michigan graduate who served as a director at Detroit Racecourse, in addition to being chairman of Thermotech Industries and president of Standard Steel Treating. By comparison, Bartlett had grown up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, the son of a steam fitter, and was a former agent for the Marmon Motor Company. One thing both men had learned about success was to surround oneself with trustworthy people and be willing to take a risk if one wants to be rewarded. Having done business in the past with Thomas, they trusted his judgment when the Kentucky breeder said he had a good yearling he was willing to sell for $5,000. So Bartlett and Turns bought the colt sight unseen. That colt, of course, was Williamston Kid. After a quiet summer campaign in Detroit as a juvenile in 1965, highlighted by a runner-up finish in the Freshman Derby at DRC, Williamston Kid shipped to Chicago and won the 39th running of the Hawthorne Juvenile Stakes. Getting the mile into 16th in 1 minute 46 and 4/5 seconds under jockey Henry Moreno, the colt took advantage of Hawthorne's long home stretch and rallied from last of 14 in the final quarter mile for the victory. As a 3-year-old, Williamston Kid finished a disappointing 8th in the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream Park, some 10 lengths behind winner Kauai King. Perhaps that's why Kauai King was the 8-5 favorite less than 2 weeks later for the 15th running of the Florida Derby, while Williamston Kid was dismissed at odds of nearly 91-1. At the finish, 4 horses hit the wire together. Kauai King was not one of them. Instead, it was Abe's Hope crossing the wire first by a neck over Williamston Kid, who in turn was second by a nose over Bold and Brave. But as Abe's Hope was standing in the winner's circle, the objection sign was posted on the infield tote board. The jockey of 4th place finisher Sky Guy had lodged a claim of foul, saying Abe's Hope had slammed his mount twice in the stretch. After a 12-minute review, the stewards agreed. Abe's Hope was disqualified from 1st to 4th, and Williamston Kid was promoted to the win at a huge price. To be precise, he paid $183 to win, $50 to place, and $23 to show. Even 60 years later, it remains the biggest upset in Florida Derby history. Williamston Kid's rider, Robert Bobby Stevenson, had long since returned to the jockey's quarters, unaware of the claim of foul. When word reached him that his mount had been promoted to the win by the stewards, he scrambled to find the silks he had removed about 10 minutes earlier, and he ran to the winner's circle. The stewards' decision had resulted in the first victory of Stevenson's 15-year career in a race for a purse of $100,000 or more. It also capped a special day for Stevenson in another sense. Prior to the races that day, his son, age 8, had been the winning jockey, if you will, in a 1-furlong race for miniature horses. Shortly after Stevenson arrived at the winner's circle, Florida Governor Hayden Burns presented the trophy for the Florida Derby. Afterward, a member of the media asked Bartlett if he truly had believed Williamston Kid had a chance to win. "Darn right I did," the trainer replied. I bet on it. He's well behaved, highly intelligent, and easy to train. After an 11th place finish in the Kentucky Derby, however, and a string of losses throughout the remainder of the year, turf riders became less enchanted with Bartlett's colt. One even said, "Williamston Kid is little more than a conversation piece. His form is bad, his seasonal record is terrible, and he has a bad habit of never crossing the finish line first." Nonetheless, Williamston Kid would continue racing through age 5, adding 2 more minor stakes victories before retiring with 11 wins in 64 starts and earnings of over $200,000. Returning to Bartlett's farm in Michigan, Williamston Kid stood 5 seasons at stud before being exported to France. He sired 6 more crops in Europe, including a pair of stakes horses, before his death at age 17 in 1980. We remember Williamston Kid, still the biggest upset winner in Florida Derby history in what was the only win of his sophomore campaign. And we wish everyone a happy and safe Florida Derby day. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Kurt Becker with another fantastic story. If you did miss it, head over to our website after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Podbean or Apple Podcasts to hear all of our weekly shows. Coming up next, I welcome Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
A Keeneland session topper from the first crop of the all-conquering Vekoma. Jonathan's Way was touted by purchaser John Moynihan as, quote, one of the best-looking horses you'll ever lay your eyes on. Out of an undefeated stakes-winning juvenile daughter of Indian Charlie, Jonathan's Way is a complete outcross through his first 5 generations and comes from the immediate female family of the great Dynaformer. Brilliantly talented with the pedigree and physical makeup to be commercial dynamite. Jonathan's Way, a future stallion star, standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Wayne's Law is still in front at the quarter pole. It's Wayne's Law. Game for it, trying to push on by. Renegade continues that 4-wide sweep. Oselli got stopped there. Confessional's going to need a seam as they wind around to the top of the stretch. Here comes Renegade. Renegade trying to come after Wayne's Law. The Puma looking for room in behind. Then comes Game for it. Confessional's back to the inside, and Oselli, Renegade takes over from Wayne's Law, who's a stubborn foe, but Renegade inching clear late. Renegade and Irad Ortiz Jr. to win the Sam F. Davis. They won it by 3 in the end. Wayne's Law ran a big one for second. The Puma was third. Game for it fourth.
Well, Renegade picked up his first career victory in the Sam F. Davis last time out. Jockey Irad Ortiz Jr. has chosen to stick with him in today's Arkansas Derby over Fountain of Youth winner Commandment in the Florida Derby. Hear what Dale and Tim have to say about that decision. Plus, which Florida and Arkansas Derby winner are Dale and Tim most surprised didn't win the Kentucky Derby? And what is going on with so many high-profile trainers calling it quits? Those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville, Equine Industry Program in the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. located in the heart of horse country. Let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
All right, guys, a loaded show, plenty to talk about. You'll be happy to know that other than this first topic, all of the other topics submitted by our listeners. So you got to bear with me. And my question here, and I'm going to start with a game of complete this sentence, and I've got two of them for you here this morning. And we're going to start with this one. Irad Ortiz has ridden both Florida Derby contender Commandment and Arkansas Derby favorite Renegade in their last two starts. His decision to stick with the Todd Pletcher-trained Renegade this afternoon says what, Tim Wilkin?
It says loyalty to Todd Pletcher is what I'm saying, because, he's ridden Renegade all three starts. He's ridden Commandment 3 of the 4 for Brad Cox. But you look down the road, during the Saratoga meet where Irad dominates, one of his main clients is Todd. Last year, Todd had 32 winners, and 12 of them were ridden by Irad, which comes out to about 37% if my math's right. And he was 32 starts and 32 of his horses that he rode for Todd. He was in the money 62% of the time, and I have to thank Rhonda Norby and Equibase for those stats. But I think that he does ride for Brad Cox too, but, Todd's his bread and butter. So I think he's going to stick with him. And, Renegade's a nice horse.
Dale, complete that sentence. What does it say about Irad Ortiz Jr. and his decision to choose Renegade?
It speaks volumes for Renegade. He must really like him. I don't think it has anything to do with trainer loyalty when it comes down to the Kentucky Derby. The only thing you're loyal to is that little gold trophy. And you're going to ride the best 3-year-old you can get on. That's why we all do it, and every trainer would understand. And I know Todd would if he thought that Irad told him he thought the other horse gave him a better chance to win the Derby. So I just think it speaks volumes for the horse.
Tim, do you think that Renegade's a better horse than Commandment?
Well, ask me that later today.
Dale, you've seen Commandment down there in Florida. Is Renegade the better horse?
I'm impressed with Commandment, but it doesn't matter what Tim and I think. It's what Irad thinks, and he must think he is.
All right, well, the Arkansas Derby, Florida Derby, both taking place this afternoon. I'm going to ask you about the Florida Derby next. Tim, complete this sentence. Today's Florida Derby will what?
It will be a repeat of the last one, Fountain of Youth, when Commandment defeated Chief Wallaby by a neck, but I think it's going to be changed. The order's going to be changed. I think Chief Wallaby's he's catching up. This is only his third start, but he showed so much talent in his last race. I think he turns the tables on Commandment, but I think it's going to be a ding-dong finish between those two, and don't forget Nearly, he's in there too.
Dale, today's Florida Derby will complete it.
Be the coming out party for Chief Wallaby. He'll move to the top of the list.
Wow, you like him that much?
I like him that much. I liked him last race, but, for Bill to run a horse from his first start, maiden race, 7/8 of a mile into the Fountain of Youth, and for him to run as well as he did, sky's the limit.
Does Bill Mock go back-to-back in the Kentucky Derby?
What's that?
Does Bill Mock go back-to-back in the Kentucky Derby?
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Dale, does he surprise me at all? Dale, you've seen him in the mornings. I haven't seen him in the mornings because obviously I'm not there. But does he remind you anything of Sovereignty?
No, I haven't seen him in the mornings either. He's up at Payson Park. I'm at Gulfstream Park. But I don't know. Sovereignty was a special horse. Bill would say one of the best he's ever trained in his life. I don't know if this horse is on that level yet, but I thought it was pretty impressive to run one start and come back and run the way he did in the Fountain of Youth.
Why didn't you take a ride up there and watch that horse?
Yeah, that's what I should do. I've never been there in my life. I told Shug one time, I said, when he's going, call me. I want to go right up with him, just check it out. But I don't think he wants to spend an hour and a half in a car with me. He's never called.
Actually, it'd be 3 hours, right?
Yeah, about 3 hours, an hour and a half up, an hour and a half back. But he is spending 4 hours with me Monday. We're playing golf at his club.
Well, golf's different.
Yeah, I think he's going to take his own cart.
They let you in that club?
Believe me, I'm the brokest person ever been in that club. It's the Billionaire Bunker. I mean, it's an amazing place. The golf course sits on a little island, and the houses that circle it are Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Ivanka Trump, Julio Iglesias, and then it'll be me and Suge out there playing golf.
Jesus, Dale, you're like Al Cervic. You know what that is?
No, but it's probably somebody who rides the coattails of someone else.
No, Mike, you know who Al Cervic is, don't you?
No.
The Rodney Dangerfield character from Caddyshack.
It'll be very similar, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I had forgotten about that, Timmy. Yes, right.
I wouldn't join that club because I wouldn't be a member of any club that would have me as a member.
Just make sure the name of the course isn't Bushwood.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to our next topic here. Shane in North Carolina wants to know which of the following Florida and Arkansas Derby winners from the past decade are you most surprised didn't win the Kentucky Derby? And he gives you some choices here, guys. Fierceness, who was 15th in 2024. White Abarrio, who was 16th in 2022. You had Known Agenda, Sandman, Cyberknife, Magnum Moon, Classic Empire. Timmy, which of those surprised you most that they did not win the Kentucky Derby?
Well, heading into each prospective race, the one that would surprise me the most was Fierceness. I mean, he had won the Florida Derby by a record 13.5 lengths. He was favored in the Kentucky Derby, and really, that was back when it seemed like Fierceness ran one good one, then ran one bad one. He got over that as he hit the summer that year, obviously. But all the horses on this list, I would think Fierceness is the one that surprised me the most. That maybe not that he didn't win, but he never really contended. That's my biggest surprise of this list.
You'd have to say Fierceness. You're right. Fierceness was it looked like he couldn't get beat if he ran the way he did in the Florida Derby. But Classic Empire was a good one, too. And, he never had a chance. He got eliminated at the break. I was a part of that. I got eliminated with him. Not that my horse was going to win anyway, but he was another good one.
Yeah, White Abarrio, looking at what he's gone on to do after that 16th place finish in the Florida Derby is somewhat interesting to me on this list.
But in that race, Mike, when he went to the Derby, I think he was like 15-1 in the Derby.
Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't getting a lot of love. But then again, you don't see a lot of really, heavy favorites in the Kentucky Derby. It's a great betting race every year. I was maybe a little surprised that he went off that high after. But then again, White Abarrio, he won 4 of his first 5. Were all at Gulfstream, and that was the stigma that's chased him around for his whole career, even though he won the Whitney and Saratoga, was that he was a Gulfstream horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until he went to California and took the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Well, that was the same, right after he won the Whitney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shane, good question there, my friend. Tom in St. Louis has the next topic for us, guys. He wants to know about all of the high-profile trainers that racing has lost this month, including guys like John Kimmel and Tom Amos, Roger Atfield, Martin Drexler, and Eddie Plesa Jr., who all have announced their retirement here this month. So I'm going to ask you, Dale, what the heck is going on here?
Tough game, tough way to make a living anymore. And these guys have all done well. They saw the best of horse racing. All the changes coming in, I just think you'll see a changing of the guard. It's not the same game we all started out in.
No, it's exactly what Eddie Plesa said.
Yeah, it is. It's different. But things change. Alan Jerkins, I was whining one day when he was 84 years old 10 years ago or something. I was whining about all the changes. He says, it's been changing since I was 17. Either change with it or get out. And these guys decided probably where they are in their life, and I'm sure they're all financially secure, decided to get out. They didn't want to play it the way we have to play now. I can 100% understand it.
Dale, what is it about today's environment with horse racing that makes it so difficult for a trainer to make a living?
Well, it's just like anybody to live anywhere. The expenses are way up on everything. A bag of feed, a bale of hay, the payroll for the grooms, and then you have all the new paperwork and legal stuff which we never fooled with before. Whether it's good or bad, it's different. And you just don't want to learn it over at 60-something years old, which all these guys are at least in their 60s, and you just don't want to learn a new way of doing things. I mean, for the guys coming up behind us, it's all they'll ever know, and it's not going to be a problem for them. They can just chug on. But I don't blame them at all. It's do you want to change everything you've done for 40 years when you're in your 60s, or you just ride off into the sunset?
How big of a role do the HISA regulations play in a lot of these decisions, Dale?
Probably quite a bit. quite a bit. I mean, the biggest thing is paperwork. It's just paperwork after paperwork after paperwork, and if you don't get it right, they fine you. And, you know, a lot of us aren't computer savvy. We're not, you know, that's one reason we worked in a barn our whole life. And, you know, do you want to start trying to figure it out? Do you hire full-time people just to do it for you and cut into any money you're making? I think they just decided to say no. I mean, you know, Tom's got his TV gig, and I'm sure he's done well. He's saved his money. He's a smart guy. And same thing with the rest of them. If I ever decide to quit here soon, at least I'll have a radio gig. It'd be $150 a week.
150? Where'd that come from?
100 a quarter, whatever you pay.
Timmy, what do you got for us?
You look at these guys, and you know, Roger Attfield's 86 years old. It's he wants to sit back and smell the roses, even though you know he's one of the biggest names in Canadian racing ever. He's going to remain an owner and a breeder. He's staying in the game. John Kimmel's staying in the game. He's been a bloodstock agent for last 3 or 4 years and was involved with the purchase of, among other horses, Chancer McPatrick for Flanagan Racing, and that horse became a dual Grade 1 winner. Tommy Amos has said, you know, he's stepping back, but he's also going to be a bloodstock agent, and he's still going to be at the barn. He wants to be in an advisory capacity for young Kenan LaRose, who I think will do a fantastic job, like we talked about last week. I mean, Martin Drexler, another Canadian trainer, said he's only 55, I think.
Yeah.
He said he's going to take some time off, but he's not ruling out coming back. And Eddie Plaza, you know, as Dale has already touched on that, it's just the cost and the difference in the game now is, and he's healthy. He wants to spend some time with his wife and do other things. He's going to saddle his last horse today in the Florida Derby with Timeless Victory. Wouldn't that be a great story if he were able to go out with a win on top in that race? So
I think if he wins this race, he'll be around for another one.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He wouldn't walk away then. But because I think the horses he has, he's only got a handful of horses. I think they're going to go to his brother-in-law, John Service.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to read this quote, guys, since we're talking about this, from Roger Attfield. He gave a quote to J.J. Heisel, who's a reporter here, does a great job. He said, "All of my life, I have always been a hands-on trainer, and now at 86, I can no longer ride out on my pony with sets and unable to safely inspect them in the stalls. Both of these things always help me understand my horse's needs mentally and physically to get the very best from them. No longer being able to perform these duties properly, it's time to say hasta la vista." Great quote from Roger Attfield. Dale, I'm sure you can relate. You've always been hands-on.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's physically taxing, and I don't know how anybody does it at 86, but him and Wayne both. Wayne's 90 years old, getting on his horse, pony, riding out there every day. But it's physically, mentally draining job. So I don't
what time do you get up? What time do you get up every morning?
You know, I don't get up that early. I get up about 6. Get out there at 7 o'clock.
But it's an all-day job.
It is an all-day job, and you never turn it off. I mean, it's day and night. It's always on your mind, and it's always either somebody calling or taking care of a problem. And not only training horses, you're running a business. You know, we all got a bunch of employees, and you got government regulations, and now HISA regulations, and it's not just going to the barn and taking care of horses anymore.
Yeah.
You got the
Tim,
payroll.
better question,
right?
Tim, is what time does Tammy get up every morning?
I'm sure she's up by 4.
She's always yelling at me to get up. Get up. Get up.
I love it. Dale getting his beauty rest. Okay, let's move on. We say hello to our friend Nick Zito. Dale and Tim get the chance to tell me if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Right or wrong. We got to get Nicky back on the show. I love when he does that for us. Sean in Pennsylvania gives us this topic, and I'm going to take a little bit of liberty with Sean's question. He asked if any Kentucky Derby winner has ever gone turf to dirt with their last prep race before the Kentucky Derby. You know, running on grass and then switching to dirt for the Derby. the point system really doesn't encourage the turf to dirt option, but if a horse won enough points to make the cut in some early prep races, would a trainer give this one a shot? And to tie this back to Nick Zito, would adding 3-year-old turf races to the Derby point system be the right or wrong move?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Tim, what do you think?
First part of the question, I don't believe a horse has ever had his final prep race on the turf before going to the Derby. Although Animal Kingdom in 2011 had never raced on dirt before the Derby. He'd had one race on the turf, and he had 3. I think these other 2 or 3 were on the synthetic. He won the Spiral, which is now the Jeff Ruby. And Big Brown, he broke his maiden on the grass up at Saratoga as a 2-year-old, and who knows what would have happened if his second start wasn't washed off the grass. He won that going away by 12. And then he obviously dominated the Florida Derby, dominated the Kentucky Derby, then he went on and dominated the Preakness too. But I know turf racing is become a lot more popular, but because I'm going to say it's wrong, because as far as putting it on the schedule for the prep races, because the Kentucky Derby has always been, it is the horse race for America, maybe the world, and I think the prep races should all be on dirt for that race. Nothing against horses that are on turf, but I think, and again, I'm not a trainer, but I would think that if you're going to train a horse to run in the Kentucky Derby, you want to train him on the dirt. Dale can tell me if I'm wrong on that.
I don't know if you're wrong about that, but I don't think you should give points to turf races, because what you end up doing is getting a true turf horse. Maybe never even running on the dirt, just taking a shot because it's the Kentucky Derby and knock somebody out that might have a legitimate chance. I will say that I've run third in the Derby twice, and both horses I prepped on the turf 2 races before their last one. They both ran at Gulfstream on the grass, and then went to the Bluegrass, and then into the Kentucky Derby. And I did that by design. And, they both ran well, Patio Prado and Dolahan. And then Dolahan went on to be a synthetic specialist, and Patio Prado was a turf specialist. But both ran well in the Derby, coming turf, dirt.
Huh. Dale, what gives you the inclination to say that I have a horse that can excel on turf that I could run good in the Derby?
Well, I thought both those horses were, back then you weren't training for points, it was just about money when they were graded stakes. And I thought they both could do either or, and I just thought that to accumulate money and keep them sound, that turf racing was a better option for them leading up to it. And then we switched them to the Bluegrass at Keeneland. Both ran well, and then on to the Kentucky Derby. But back then, I think that even the Bluegrass was synthetic. So I think it went turf, synthetic, dirt with both horses.
So you wouldn't do it now because of the point system?
No, you can't now. You can't do it anymore. But that was just a path I had cut out for them. Jerry Crawford and I talked about it, and we thought it was our easiest path to accumulate graded money, and I thought they were switch hitters. They go either way, and plus, like I say, turf is not as taxing on them, I don't believe. So that was just a path we decided to take to try to get there, and it worked well for both of them. They both ran well in the Derby.
Dale, putting the Kentucky Derby aside, why does the turf to dirt angle seem to be a legitimate thing with horses?
That's a good question. I don't know, but it does seem to be. And I don't know if it's because they get a race in them that isn't as taxing, like I just said, and then they go on to the dirt and they're still fresh, feeling good, and explode.
But do you see horses that, might excel on the turf, and then when they get on the dirt, they don't like it at all?
There's a lot of them. Kid's Joy was one that we were talking about. He to me was strictly a turf horse, but just to make sure with a top 3-year-old like that, we brought Jerry Bailey up to Palm Meadows to work him on the dirt, and he got off him and said it's not even the same horse. Don't even think about it. So that made it easy for me and Ramsey to, as hard as it is with a good 3-year-old, not take a shot to not run him in the Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Sean in Pennsylvania, we appreciate that topic. Keep them coming. If you want to email the show, you can do it. We'll get those topics worked in for Dale and Tim as best we can going forward. We'll say hello to Nick Zito next week here on I Ask, They Answer. But time to move on to our final topic. It comes from Jim in New Jersey. And he asked, with no casino revenue in sight and the recent migration of trainers such as Mike McCarthy, Peter Urton, Pete Miller, and now Bob Baffert, either totally or partially moving away from California, coupled with small field sizes, guys, where do you see California racing in 2 or 3 years? Tim, let's start with you.
Well, I hope it's still thriving, but I have my doubts about that. You know, you hear the tales of woe of, you know, about what's going to happen to these racetracks out there. I mean, I know Santa Anita's still going to be standing at least in 2028 because they're going to have the Olympic equestrian out there. But what happens after that is, I mean, I don't know what kind of deal the track has with the land out there, but I know that there must be some urban people just licking their chops because that is some prime real estate out there. Having racing in California, I think, is a necessity, just like it is in Florida. To lose those places like that would just be a major blow to the sport. And I just hope that people realize how important it is to the economies out there. Look what the Breeders' Cup brought into the San Diego economy last year and the year before when it was at Del Mar. It can be a thriving business if you let it run.
Yeah, I don't know. That's way above my pay grade. There's no good answer for California. I mean, there's a lot of smart people looking at it. And I was talking to some of the guys at Churchill. They said they'd love to get back into South Florida. They said, but California's just too complicated. They can't even figure it out. It's not looking good for a long-range future out there. It's important to racing, and I would hate to see that domino fall because who knows what domino will fall behind it. But it's a very complicated issue.
Well, the one thing that's always been a staple of Southern California racing is trainer Bob Baffert being based there, and he will continue to do so. But he announced that he is going to have a stable now at Churchill Downs and at Oaklawn coming up this year. What does that say about the situation out there when Bob Baffert's saying, hey, I got to keep strings in other places now?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I know how much he loves it out there in California. He's always had horses at Churchill, but not a full division. All those guys you just mentioned have had smaller stables, but you know, the B stables got to where they can't compete at Churchill, so you better bring your A team, and that looks like what they're starting to do.
It didn't help California racing at all. I mean, when the first domino fell out when they closed Golden Gate up north, so everything has to migrate down south except for the fairs that they have up there. So, you know, again, it's not a good situation in California, and I feel for the guys that have to send horses elsewhere, even though they'd probably rather stay in California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see where things end up in 2 to 3 years, but certainly not a rosy picture at this point for horsemen in Southern California. Jim in New Jersey, we appreciate that topic. Okay, guys, time to move on to our West Point of the week as we say hello to our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds who are back on board to sponsor this segment over the course of the next several weeks. And I want to remind our listeners that owning a racehorse with West Point Thoroughbreds means you are in the care of complete professionals who guide you throughout your ownership journey. You'll get instant access to the highest levels of racing, world-class trainers, jockeys, racetracks, and, of course, your horse. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Timmy, kick us off. What is your West Point of the week?
We've been on the radio show now for, 30 minutes? And we didn't even mention the Dubai World Cup. Forever Young is taking his next step, and you know, I think that he's going to be on the world stage today, and I'm sure he's going to show what he can do, even though I won't put him in my top rankings until he starts coming over here. But I wish everybody safe passage over there with the way things are going on in the world over there. But Forever Young will probably put on a show for us.
Yeah, he probably will. It's going to be a nice night over there. Hopefully everything stays peaceful. I'm just going to say good luck to all of the guys that are retiring. And keep me posted on how much you like it or if you miss it at all.
Well, I'm sure they're going to miss it a little bit. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin. Guys, we're going to do it all over again next Saturday morning. Appreciate it. Good luck this weekend.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
All right, there you have it. That's I Ask, They Answer. And yeah, I'll echo Tim's sentiments to everybody who has made that trip to Dubai for the Dubai World Cup program. Safe travels back home. And I know we've been talking about that a little bit throughout the show here this morning, but safe travels to everyone as they make their way, not just back to the United States, but everywhere around the world. I Ask the Answer is presented every week by our friends at the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more, including the answer to this week's impossible trivia question presented by Mojo Racing. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Here we go. Come on, boys.
Good luck. And they're off. Be part of the story. Own the moment. Go to MojoRacingPartners.com to get your mojo working.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals, because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Think back to the last time you were in nature. What comes to mind? Hiking through a lush forest, floating on a lazy river, or perhaps watching a vibrant sunset on a beach full of glistening plastic bottles and food wrappers. Unfortunately, this isn't a joke. Here in the U.S., we generate the most plastic waste in the world, with 70% of it ending up in landfills. And by the time you're done listening to this ad, more than a dump truck's worth of plastic will have made it into the ocean. Plastic has become a useful part of our everyday lives, but it's polluting the air, water, and soil that all life needs to survive. This is a human problem that can be solved with human action, but it's going to take all of us, from individuals to businesses to governments and everyone in between. Help create a cleaner future for both people and nature. Visit wwf.earth/plastics.
The Department of Veterans Affairs is so innovative, it not only improves the lives of veterans, it transforms the lives of healthcare professionals who serve them with access to the latest technologies and remarkable benefits. Transform your future at vacareers.va.gov.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Fierceness in behind horses. Sierra Leone is right in contention too as they make their way to the top of the stretch. And they're into the stretch in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And Forever Young turns for home with the lead. Journalism is second. Sierra Leone, Fierceness, one off the rail. Still Forever Young to catch. Fierceness is coming. Sierra Leone and Journalism, they're coming to the finish. And it is Forever Young. Celebrate Japan! They've won the Breeders' Cup Classic. Sierra Leone was second. Fierceness was third in a final time of 2 minutes, 0.19 seconds.
Larry Colmus with the call of last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Forever Young put on a show that day. Tim Wilkin, you just heard him saying he thinks Forever Young will put on a show later today in Dubai as well. Post time for the Dubai World Cup, 12:45 Eastern, so just over an hour and 45 minutes from right now. Yeah, should be fantastic. He is one heck of a racehorse. Going to be something if he, Sovereignty, can both stay on track and maybe meet in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. I know it's a long way away, but Boy, would that be something special to see. Hall of Famer John Velasquez, who is eager for more Kentucky Derby victories, is the feature piece on the cover of the March issue of the Blood Horse. The April issue of Blood Horse is out now, too. It also includes Into Mischief's chance of setting a Kentucky Derby record. Flashback to Bubbling Over's 1926 Derby, which is one of 4 editions taken by owner Colonel E.R. Bradley, and much, much more. Exclusive features only for subscribers. Become a subscriber right now for as little as $5, and you can do that at bloodhorse.com/subscribe. That's $5 an issue at bloodhorse.com/subscribe. You won't want to miss it. Boy, a lot of ground covered, as usual, here on the Equine Forum this morning. One more item to get to, and that is our answer to this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. Lee Delapina has it for you right now.
Thank you, Mike. What Florida Derby winner went on to become the first in history to be awarded a win in the Kentucky Derby due to a DQ of the original winner? Well, that was Forward Pass in 1968. He was awarded the victory after Dancer's Image was disqualified for a medication violation. Thanks to Mojo Racing Partners for this week's impossible trivia question. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com.
Yeah, get your mojo working. Yeah, fantastic stuff there. And great job by Lee Delapina. Again, coming up with that question for you. We'll have another one for you next Saturday morning here on the Equine Forum. All right, well, I told you, and you've been listening, for the last 3 hours now, and you've heard me talk about the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby and how special those races can be, especially looking ahead 5 weeks down the road to the first Saturday in May. You heard from Hall of Fame trainer Todd Pletcher here on the program. My thanks to the Pontiff at the Pick 4, Jude Feld, Brian Nadeau from Gulfstream Park, James Scully with the TwinSpires Triple Play, Kurt Becker for his Stroll Through Racing History, Dale and Tim with I Ask, They Answer. Again, if you missed any portion of the show, check out the podcast on our website and on your favorite podcast platform. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, to Chauncey for handling all of our social media again this morning. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Good luck at the races, and of course, go Steelers.